Every April flights of parrots pass on over me. Red and green and tangerine, colors bright and free. I hear them high as they fly by. I listen to their song.
Parrots don't sing. Talk, maybe. Holler. They sure as hell don't sing.
Hey, you know what I wish? I wish we'd be so damn literal.
You better watch out. You're going to become an aspirin junkie.
It's the EsotEric Eric Roberts podcast. And tonight we're going to be discussing In Cold Blood, a miniseries event from 1996. Plot keyword, tied up while barefoot. Plot keyword, rural setting. And I'm joined by plot keyword, Roy.
My respect for ED as a podcast journalist caused me to listen to him. And when he said some shows he drinks, but it notices it makes him more racist, I thought, man, that's a smart idea. So I'm having a delicious macadamia vanilla coffee with tequila and Grand Marnier with a generous scoop of vanilla ice cream. And it smells like a GD hair salon.
Whoa, that's a fancy man's drink. How's that ice cream?
Good.
I'm having a glass of red wine and it's cold and it looks like blood.
Cold blood.
I'm thinking about In Cold Blood. This is
Nice.
based on the famous Truman Capote true crime novel that I believe is from 59.
Ooh, I think maybe the murders were committed in 59. The book's not from the 60s.
Oh, okay. And you've read the book, Roy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how much other In Cold Blood material have you seen? I've seen Capote.
I've seen that.
And I watched the 67 version of the film.
I've seen that.
The one with Sandra Bullock, I have not seen.
I've seen that. And I've seen half of True, the one-man play about Capote. I guess it's not a version of In Cold Blood.
I would assume Perry is in what was it called? Notorious?
No, it was called Infamous.
Infamous, yeah. So there's a lot of different versions of Perry out there. And Perry is a character that's played by Eric Roberts.
Getting second billing after Anthony Edwards. But I'd have to say that in traditional, who is the top character in the story, Perry has the most lines, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
He's really
more
the lead.
More focus on Perry.
Not to detract from Anthony Edwards, but yeah, Eric Roberts is the true lead, even though he gets second billing.
So this was released on November 24th and 25th, 1996. Do you remember?
I do not remember this as a TV event at all.
Neither do I. Do you remember what you would be doing on these days?
I guess that would be around Thanksgiving of my being 16. And so let me think. I might have gone. When was Thanksgiving? I don't know.
Somewhere.
What were you doing?
Well, I was still 15, so I don't know. Something much different than you, I bet.
Yeah, I was eating dinner with a whole different set of family.
Well, this is a story that takes place in Kansas. It's a Kansas story, and it's about the Clutter family, and it's about these two outsiders, I guess you could call them, Perry and Dick. Dick is played by Anthony Edwards in a strange playing against type. Did you feel
kind
that?
of miscast, but probably took the role to play against type, I would bet. And get top billing because he was on the very hot ER at the time.
Yeah, he was on ER. So we know Anthony Edwards from, let's see here, Revenge of the Nerds, and we know him from Top Gun.
Yes, and such films as Miracle Mile, Zodiac.
Probably making his first appearance in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, wow, I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
Is he one of Judge Reinhold's buddies or something?
He's one of Spicoli's surfer.
Oh, wow, I didn't remember
buddies.
that. The movie of his, I remember they would always have on TV, and I'd watch a couple seconds of it as a kid and then flip it. But I picked up a copy of it, and I didn't watch it. Was Gotcha.
Yeah, I remember always seeing that around.
Linda Fiorentino, but I haven't seen it yet. Didn't have time to watch it yet, unfortunately.
Also in the film, we have Sam Neal, who was also pretty hot around this time as Agent.
Yeah, this is an odd. Why is Sam Neal in this movie? Was a weird question. Did they offer him a boatload of cash?
Yeah, it's a very strange choice for Mr. Neal at this time.
Strange casting as well, and a strange accent as well.
Yeah, it almost felt like he was dubbed at times.
It was all weird with Sam Neal in this.
And we have the actor Kevin Tighe as Mr. Clutter.
Yes, also oddly cast in that he doesn't look like Mr. Clutter from the book. But once again, as in the case of Anthony Edwards, this movie was nominated for an award from somebody for best casting. And time and again in this, I felt like characters didn't really look like I imagined them in the book. However, they did cast good actors in the parts, and Kevin Tighe I thought was excellent as Herb Clutter, for once playing a character not pure evil.
Yeah. I was wondering, what do we know him from?
He immediately pops into my mind from the movie 8 Men Out as one of the gamblers that's ends up kind of in league with Arnold Rothstein, the other one played by Christopher Lloyd. I think Michael Lerner was Arnold Rothstein.
He has a certain J.T. Walshness about
Yes,
him.
I think maybe he was in a lot of John Sayles movies that I haven't seen.
It says here Kevin Tighe was a lifelong friend of John Ritter.
Whoa, from Problem Child.
Yes, from the famous film Problem Child. So in the book, I'm wondering about Perry and Dick, what their ages are.
That's a good question. I cannot recall.
So Edwards and Roberts are well into their 30s in this.
Oh, yes.
In this one, but it feels right.
It does feel right. They've served multiple prison stretches each, and at least Perry was in the military.
Right.
So it's possible that they're probably both around 30, but I'm not sure. I really can't remember. I'm sorry.
So this was.
Do you remember? Well, no, obviously you asked.
In Capote, they seem a little bit younger in the 1967 film.
And in the movie Capote, they feel younger, even though Clifton Collins has probably been around about as long as Roberts had at that point. What's the other actor who gets real short shrift in Capote but is excellent as Dick? I can't remember that actor's name.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you remember who played Perry in Infamous?
It was Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig. Whoa, that's an interesting casting. I'm gonna maybe need to see that. I didn't have time in my busy schedule to take it all in. Almost 3-hour long event, and it really, I can't imagine what it leaves out of the book, because it really feels like it covers every aspect.
No, it leaves a lot out.
It's crazy.
That's one thing. It's a 3-hour movie, but it leaves a lot out. It really makes a choice to focus mostly on Perry and Dick.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels like it feels not like just a straight remake of the old movie, but the old movie also chose to largely focus on Perry and Dick.
Yeah. And that's why I thought that, is because they are very similar. They touch on the same exact plot beats at the same times almost.
There aren't that many more incident in the novel, but there's a lot more just sprawling scope of people's point of view, things going on in the town. A big theme of the book is almost like how I feel about I haven't read the book No Country for Old Men, but in the movie, the idea that the country's getting crazier and there's no real safety and stuff. It's kind of a movie about, it's kind of a book about, you can never be safe, and there's decay, and you've got the son of Herb Clutter smokes, the daughter dates a boy that's a religion he doesn't quite approve of.
Yeah.
The character that gets really short shrift in this movie version is the wife, who isn't really in the book that much, except for to say in this, you don't really get the full scope of that. Her problems, her affliction is a mental affliction.
Yes.
And so the tight ways of Herb Clutter have kind of, well, maybe not driven her insane, but she's insane in this prosaic, stark house that isn't quite as stark in this version as in the old version, in which they shot the real Clutter house. How creepy is that?
In the 96 version?
In the 60s version, they shot the real Clutter house.
Yes.
The Clutter house was also famously Bunny Lebowski's childhood home. When John Polito shows the photograph of Bunny Lebowski's house to Jeff Bridges, it is the Clutter home.
That's excellent. Well, you can feel In Cold Blood has influenced all kinds of things. Definitely the Coens, and we can get into that later. But
In Cold Blood was written after the film noir cycle, so in a way, it was looking for a new way in on the crime novel too. And so it's been influenced in trying to play against hundreds and hundreds of convict murder movies. But yeah, by the end of In Cold Blood, another thing is, as soon as everybody in the town has theories on who the murderer is, and it's all people in the town. Everybody in the town is scared. Everybody comes up with reasons why somebody might have wanted to murder Herb Clutter, who seemed like the most liked man in town. And so there's all this suspicion and stuff. And then there are all kinds of things about people in the town and things that happen with them after the murders. There's a lot more of Dewey, the Sam Neill character who gets third billing here, is also given a lot of short shrift in this version. Yes, just many things. But by the end of the book, in Cold Blood, it has ceased to be such a national story because so many other murders have taken place. And there's a whole nother murder in the book that until recently, Dick Hickok and Perry Smith were suspected of. And some people still suspect them of it in Florida that is not mentioned in this movie.
Wow,
a family of 4 got murdered
corrected.
in Florida. And there was 5 days in the novel In Cold Blood. Truman Capote says they immediately jump on this one lead, but they really waited 5 days. And in that 5 days, a family of 4 in Florida was murdered. in very similar fashion to the Clutters. And in the book In Cold Blood, they read about it in the paper. Perry reads about it in the paper, and they claim they weren't there. And Perry says it's like a copycat of what they did. And Dick says something kind of ambiguous where he says, what were you doing that night? Then later they're made to take a polygraph test about it, but they both passed the polygraph test. Recently, the bones of Hickok and Smith were exhumed, and DNA testing was done to see if it matched the crime scene of the murders of the Walker family in Florida, but it did not.
Jeez.
So that murder remains unsolved.
Well, I had assumed that the plotting pace of this miniseries was due to the fact that it was trying to cover every aspect, but I stand corrected. And I see here that, yes, that the crime took place in November of 59, and so the novel would have come out a few years later. And yeah, November 3rd is when our story kicks off, pretty much. We're in the town of Holcomb, Kansas, and the Clutter family are Methodist.
The movie constantly, just every time we go to Holcomb, how many signs of Holcomb do they have to show us?
Yeah,
that's one of my least
versions.
favorite elements of the movie.
Yeah, they really hammer that into you. I feel like I want to name my first son Holcomb now.
Holcomb Caulfield.
We see that Sam Neal, as Officer Dewey, is a member of this congregation in this church, because the miniseries begins with a church service, and it's intercut with a gallows test at a prison facility with a weighted sack. They're testing the strength.
Which is our only piece, I think, of foreshadowing, or just that the movie, right? Isn't that our only piece of real foreshadowing that they're to be murdered?
Yeah.
That was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, pretty neat. We end up at the Hotel American, and this is in another town in Kansas. This is in Olathe, however you would pronounce it.
I wasn't sure how to pronounce it either.
And so this church service is intercut between the church service and then a lot of stuff of we're getting to know the Clutter family.
We get our opening credits.
Yeah, so we have
out this is a Ryan Reynolds film.
Yeah, we see Ryan Reynolds, and also, he's not in the congregation. He's at
he's at the other church.
Well, yes, because his character is Catholic, so he's at a play. There's a stage rendition of I believe it's Tom Sawyer going on. And so, yeah, we're getting to know the Clutter family. We have Herb as the father, and there's the Jillian Barber as the mother, the melancholic mother, and we have teenage Nancy and the teenage son, Kenyon, yes.
Whom this movie was one of those things where it confused me because it had Ryan Reynolds and a guy who looks like Ryan Reynolds. Sometimes I thought Kenyon was Ryan Reynolds, and it confused me.
Yeah, same here. The first time we see Kenyon, I thought, man, I didn't realize Ryan Reynolds was that young,
aged that quickly. Yes.
Yes.
I had the exact same thought.
He's slightly younger than Mr. Reynolds.
Yeah, it looks like the kid that played Kenyon and the kid that played Nancy, they didn't act long after this. This was almost Kenyon's last credit.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing them in anything else. Yeah, there's this, it's like a high school play being put on, and there's this heavy on stage kiss. Nancy is playing Becky. I can't remember. Becky Thatcher getting kissed by Tom Sawyer. And you can see Mr. Herb Clutter.
She gives old Ryan Reynolds a look like this kiss is really for you.
Yeah, and Mr. Clutter does not approve either. He's a bit bothered by
face acting, the looking at Clutter and looking at Nancy.
Yeah. Clutter has like the classic look of like a R. Crumb, like a pained, like square character.
One thing, they made him more hard-assed and less like soft father knows best, kindly, like they did in the 67. Didn't you find he was more of a kindly dad in the 67 version?
I did, yes.
I liked this. This was more like the book. And so it kind of gave him a little, it wasn't as perfect, like in the old version, he's like, oh, look at the great dad. And this one, you can see how he's wrapped a little too tight. Maybe he's making everybody go a little crazy.
Yes, and we grew up in the Bible Belt, and we know these guys. We know these types of fathers.
Oh yeah,
not necessarily our fathers, but maybe. Yeah, we don't want to disclose that, but we know these types of guys that are tightly wound like this. Yeah, there's a restaurant scene where they're kind of celebrating after the play, and we start to detect this awkwardness really with the mother. She's very distant, and she's a classic. I mean, Capote as a gay writer, she's just the classic Tennessee Williams, like melancholic kind of mother who has spells.
Tennessee Williams was Truman Capote's cousin or uncle or something.
I can't remember how they're connected.
They're related.
Yeah, because Capote was a Southern boy.
Yes, he was from Alabama. He's the character Dill in To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yes, because Capote was best friends with what's her name?
Harper Lee.
Yeah, I don't ever remember women off their names. Harper Lee, famously played by Sandra Bullock. Yeah, we have this awkward restaurant scene, and intercut with all this, we're also getting to know Perry and Dick, and these are the guys played by Anthony Edwards and Eric Roberts, and we see them in a hardware store, and they're very obviously buying crime supplies.
Yes.
There's the purchasing of there's looking at some rope. In this scene here, we get our first of many Perry flashbacks, and these are classic in the miniseries, presented in black and white, and this would be in Alaska where Perry grew up, Klondike City or somewhere around there. And yeah, his father is building a hunting lodge, and so there's kind of a flashback to his father being optimistic about this lodge, something about rope that connects. He's looking at rope in the hardware store, and it's connecting it to his memory.
Work with his father.
And there's Perry's looking at a very sharp and big knife, and then there's a shop girl that Dick is flirting with, who's very young, and some kind of assault that happens off screen with the girl screaming stop.
Yes.
Yeah, so
we
get
stuff
very quickly we learn that Dick has problems with the ladies. He has problems restraining himself.
Yes.
And so Dick is going to buy a hunting vest, and they talk about that a little bit as some kind of a costume that they're going to use.
Yes, like. They talk about they're trying to get things to cover their face, pantyhose, which is Perry's idea, and he thinks that sheer pantyhose or nude is not going to work because Dick has a crazy eye, which I'm not sure how in whatever 320p or something on YouTube. I'm not sure if I could tell he had a crazy eye at all.
Well,
but he does squint it weird. Yeah, he's supposed to have a dot tattoo on his eye from prison, and maybe a flaw in the same eye from that car wreck or something.
He definitely has a scar, but it took me a long time as well, because these first scenes, Perry's like, have you considered an eye patch of some kind because of your eye? And I'm thinking, I don't really see anything wrong with Anthony Edwards' eye. And then gradually, after I watched it a while, I was like, oh, there's a little bit of scarring that they put on there, but it's kind of subtle.
Might have been more pronounced how we've been able to see it in better resolution.
It becomes more pronounced, as the show goes on. These guys are discussing this rich farmer in Kansas. Dick has been in prison, and he had a cellmate who was tipping him about this guy,
Floyd Wells.
Yes, his cellmate Floyd Wells, who worked for this guy, Mr. Clutter, and has told Dick that he stashes all of his money in a safe in his house.
Yeah, he's got a big spread in Kansas.
He makes 10 grand a week. Yeah, and we see these guys are dreamers. They're dreaming about where they're going to go after they get this money. Perry's obsessed with treasure hunting because his father was a gold rush guy.
And one thing I noticed that they left out in this is there were allusions, I think, in the 67 version, perhaps, to the movie Treasure of Sierra Madre. And Eric Roberts loves Bogart and loves the movie. Not Eric Roberts, but Perry in the book loves the movie in Treasure of Sierra Madre and really wants to go gold hunting. But Dick remembers that Humphrey Bogart went crazy and they didn't get any gold in the end and doesn't want to go. And I was thinking it's funny, like, this is 2 years after Pulp Fiction, in which every crime movie would be throwing all the references to old TV and movies and books in they could, but this one withheld. I'm not sure if that was a conscious decision or not.
And I mean, also around this time is just the emphasis on the heists gone wrong.
Oh yeah,
which was just the big trend for a few years there, starting probably with Reservoir Dogs, and then you have was Fargo 95 or 96?
96 from this year.
Yeah, so this
Speaking of heists gone wrong, have you seen the new Steven Soderbergh No Sudden Move yet?
No, sir.
I highly recommend it.
Pretty good.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Benicio's in that, right?
Oh yeah, it's got a great cast. It's got a few of my faves. It's got Benicio del Toro and Bill Duke. It's got Ray Liotta. It's got Don Cheadle in fine form. Old Matt Damon pops up in there. And I don't think I'd ever seen that actor David Harbour in anything yet, but he was really good.
Nice. I've been saving up a lot of Soderberghs that I haven't seen from the last decade.
There are a lot to see.
Yeah, he's a guy who's steady pumping them out. Yeah, so these two guys are talking about Cozumel quite a bit. They're trying to get down there, a place where you can live like a king for $50 a month.
Yeah, they're former cellmates from one prison stretch that Dick Hickok and Perry had. And then Dick Hickok was cellmates with Floyd Wells in a different prison. And I guess wrote to Perry about wanting to hang out and a score, and knew he could always depend on Perry to help him in a score based on their previous time together.
And Perry's coming from Vegas?
Yes.
And he has warrants in Kansas.
Yeah, he's not supposed to go to Kansas.
Yeah, so he's in Kansas and he's not supposed to be there, which adds a little tension. And back in the Clutter half of the story, our good friend of the pod, Ryan Reynolds, is bringing Nancy Clutter home, and they're having a little teen romance. And Mr. Clutter takes him aside and speaks to him because there's this big rift between the Methodists and the Catholics. The dad does not want Nancy to end up with this guy. She's going to go to college the next year anyways, so he really is trying to push for her to break up with him. And we're going to get a lot of this leading up to the big event of the story. Like, we spend a lot of time with the Clutters. Would you agree?
Yeah, sure. Yes, maybe for too much for how much we care about them when it really
That's what
they maybe they perhaps misspend this time. Yeah.
And that's why I thought, well, I guess the book is just really about all this shit of like,
no, the book has more Clutters than and I will say the book is wonderful. It's wonderful. It's the best version of any of the things we mentioned is the book, but the story does not have that many. It is kind of slow for how many pages it is, but it's the things you learn and think about and things. It's a great book. You should read it. Everybody out there should read it before watching this movie.
Hell yeah.
And
how long ago did you read it, Roy?
I finished reading it a second time today.
Oh, wow.
That's why I'm ashamed I couldn't remember those guys' ages.
Well, how long is the book?
340 pages or so.
Okay, fairly lean.
For a crime book, it's pretty long, for a pulpy story. But yeah, it's not just a pulpy story. It expands on, there's a lot of ideas in there, things to meditate on. Wonderful book, really wonderful. Can't recommend it enough.
In this period of the miniseries here, we learn that Eric Roberts' character Perry is a guitar player.
and he sings a song the real Perry wrote.
Oh, really?
Yes, about the parrot. And Dick says parrots. It's about something about a parrot singing, right?
The one that sticks out to me maybe comes a little bit later about the gypsy breed or something like that.
He sings a song, with something about the parrot singing. It's something about a singing parrot, and Dick says, "Well, parrots don't sing. They squawk, they talk, but they sure don't sing." He's like, "I wish you wouldn't be so literal."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we learn that Perry has a big vocabulary.
He loves to study words.
He's an articulate person, and he's a sensitive guy. And he has been in a motorcycle accident, so he has a bum leg. There is a scene that shows you his scar as well. He's got scars all over his leg.
Yeah, he has crazy legs. That's right. From motorcycle accident. I believe he got in while he was in the army.
Yeah, and he is an aspirin addict. He's always chewing the aspirin, and he likes to chase the aspirin with Barks root beer.
He loves root beer.
Yeah. Do you like root beer?
I hate it.
I hate root beer.
Yeah, I can't stand it.
I do not like it.
I don't like cream soda either.
I have a friend of a similar age who he said his whole entire life he thought it was Bargs. He's like, dude, I just recently realized that it was a Q. And he loves it. He's a root beer enthusiast. So it blew his mind when he finally looked at it close one day and was like, oh my God. I've been saying it wrong my whole life. Yeah. So, okay. Now, where are Dick and Perry in this part of the story? They're making their way towards Holcomb. And we get some very boring Waltons. Did you ever watch any episodes of the Waltons?
Never seen the Waltons.
Yeah, I just kind of know about it. Old John Boy.
Good night, John Boy.
Good night, John Boy. That's where Doc Boy from Garfield.
Oh, funny.
Comes from John Arbuckle's brother. They call him Doc Boy.
Garfield the Morse the cat ripoff.
That's correct. So we have all this Walton shit. We have Nancy's baking some pies. Clutter Senior is teaching his teenage boy how to drive a clutch.
We maybe have the part where somewhere in this first half of the first episode, there's the part where Clutter busts the boy for smoking. Nancy busts him for smoking too, I believe, in this episode.
Yeah. Mr. Clutter's like, do you remember what 4-H stands for?
Yes.
And somehow he ties it into cigarettes.
Well, he's like for heart, health, things like it's health, harm. It's four H's, whatever, hands, heart, health, and something else. And he's like, well, smoking isn't good for any of them.
Yeah. And then we have the classic gay innovation, the melancholic, unhinged mother is kind of just lingering around during all of these scenes. But it seems like she's been turning a corner.
Yeah, been doing better lately. She's been coming out in public. I think she came to that show, to the play or whatever.
Yeah, and that was a big deal for her.
Yes.
And so you kind of, with the mother and with Perry and stuff, you start to feel this motif of trauma. I started to feel like, oh, okay, that's probably what Capote was zeroing in on, and that might have been kind of innovative for its time back in the early 60s.
Moral decay, and there's nothing you can do to feel safe and stuff. I don't know.
Roy entropy is the tendency of everything to go to hell. Have you ever heard that?
Sure.
I believe it was said in a film called Fugitive Among Us.
Great movie.
And there is another Fugitive Among Us connection that we'll get to. Don't let me forget about the boot print.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Keep it rolling. Yes.
Okay, so we learn a lot of stuff about Perry and his trauma. We learn that Perry has problems with incontinence as well, and I'm not sure if that comes from the motorcycle accident. But he flashes back. I guess not, because he was a bedwetter when he was a kid.
Yes. Did you ever wet the bed?
Oh, I mean, maybe a little bit but I stopped once I was 5 or 6 or so.
I think just about every kid has a little bedwetting phase, but I guess his must have been when he was older or something. And then I think he kept it up when he was older too. I have something about this.
I mean, I don't want to get too candid here. When's the last time that happened to you?
Oh gosh, it's been forever.
It doesn't really happen to adults, I guess.
I have a thing. Well, I have a thing later where I want to talk about almost having to pee when you're asleep in dreams.
I went to high school with a young lady who wet herself one time at a party. Pretty embarrassing. Hope she got over that humiliation. But yeah, there's this scene in a restaurant where Perry has this flashback of being in a Catholic, I guess it would be an orphanage after his parents abandoned him or something.
Well, I believe they say that he was in orphanage at some point, and he had a crazy childhood. I'm not sure we get all the ins and outs of this, but I think he may have been in a youth detention center.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he got busted for something when he was like 8.
He doesn't like nuns, and he brings that up earlier.
Yeah, this nun beat him all crazy, and he said she would watch him she would like show up at all hours of the night to check if he'd wet his bed, humiliate him in front of all the other boys, and they all laughed at him.
Yeah. Do you remember what he says as an adult when they see the nuns at the gas station?
No.
He says something. Roberts has a good line where he's like, nuns are always a bad omen.
Oh yes, he does. Yeah, that's right. When they go to get the black stockings, that's right. Nuns are a bad luck Perry is very superstitious, and nuns are bad luck, but he wants to send Dick in to get the black stockings so people won't recognize Dick's eye at all through the sheer stockings that they couldn't get at the store. So he wants them to go in and ask nuns for stockings, and Dick goes in to humor him and just hangs out a second, comes back out, and Perry's like, you didn't really ask him, you just hung out. And he's like, dude, it was a stupid idea. What the hell am I going to do? Ask nuns for he calls it a pukey idea, that to ask nuns for this. And besides, we were going to leave no witnesses, right? No witnesses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oh yeah, he definitely repeats that a lot. Dick has some funny turns of phrases or ways of speaking.
He calls him honey a lot. He likes calling Perry honey.
Something's wrong with you, honey. You got bubbles in your blood.
For nerves. It's his version of butterflies in your stomach is bubbles in your blood.
Bubbles in your blood. In this period, we're getting a little bit of a ways into the show. Sam Neal, who's been gone for almost an hour, finally comes back, and we see him and Herb Clutter hanging out. They're having some pie together at a diner, and Sam Neal offers Herb Clutter the title of Methodist Layman of the Year, which is a big church title.
Some kind of party for him at the church.
Yeah, some kind of elder. Or
so we find out Sam Neal is also a Methodist, and that they both helped build the church together and are sort of elders or deacons in the church together.
You and I went to the same denomination when we were younger.
Church of Christ.
Get the title for the men who were
you get your deacons and your elders.
Deacons and elders. There you go. So it's similar to that. I don't know much about the Methodist Church. Never been to one.
Neither do I. So they're all going to hell.
I know it's all apostasy. I know that, certain of that. But yeah, this is a big thing for Herb. who is a godly man. And so he's very honored to be given this title.
This is one of those things where we find out a little bit, about Herb, where he says that he didn't, do this to build honor for himself, but for God, and it's wrong, and that Dewey rather should take the award. That's the character played by Neal. And Dewey says, well, the Bureau, the Kansas Bureau of Investigations doesn't mind us having religion. They just don't like us to show it off. And he's like, well, I feel the same way, blah, blah. But then the waitress comes up and she says that false modesty doesn't suit him one bit. That's another time we learn that, maybe Herb isn't perfect.
Yeah, I wish I would have paid maybe a little more attention to this waitress, because they do give her some screen time.
She's she's very acidic. You get the feeling that Capote talked to her a lot or something. Maybe had a lot of meals in there.
Yeah, definitely. There's another
She has
seduction.
even more in the book.
There's another dick seduction that goes down at a gas station.
Oh, yes, that gives Perry another flashback now.
Yeah, to his father again, but this time his father is older and played by a different actor.
Wait, is this not where he goes in and his mom's having sex with a dude?
Yeah.
His mom's having sex with some guy and his dad shows up and but first his mom calls him in the middle of her having sex with a dude. The dude pulls out and gets off her so her son can come over and kiss her on the mouth. And then the guy's like, hey, get out of here. You can play with your mom all the time. It's my turn. Then he goes out, and then his dad shows up and is like, get out of here, boy, and go home. And then his dad goes in there. Now I believe the dad is L.Q. Jones.
Yeah.
The great L.Q. Jones.
Did you experience some confusion where it felt like the mother was inviting the young child to participate?
It was definitely perverse in some way.
Yeah, it did.
I guess she was hammered on booze. It's the old trope of the Native American that gets liquor in her and becomes a different person.
Roy, I thought for a moment I was watching a Dusan Makayev.
Yeah.
Well, we have L.Q. Jones here, who we know from a lot of, I would say, Westerns.
Mostly, yeah. And then Casino the year before this.
Casino, and I think one of his last films was Prairie Home Companion.
Oh, maybe his last film. And I think the year after this was when The Edge came out. I like him in that too. But, you know him from so many things. He directed A Boy and His Dog.
Oh, yeah.
He was in The Wild Bunch. So many things. You're right. Yeah. He's been retired for years now. He's still alive.
Do you know what LQ stands for?
No.
Me neither. That'd be fun to look up.
He was credited as something else on one of his directorial efforts on TV. I don't know if it was something that had LQ. I don't think so.
Dick and Perry are driving ever closer towards the Holcomb house as even more boring shit happens in their household.
Yeah, like the kid busts Ryan Reynolds. Oh, I had a theory about why Ryan Reynolds and the kid look alike.
Let's hear it. There's some more Doosan.
So do you think Mrs. Clutter was impregnated by Ryan Reynolds' dad in one of her jags of nervous depression? Or do you think maybe Mr. Clutter is Ryan Reynolds' real dad, and that's his secret shame and the reason he's really against their relationship between Ryan Reynolds and his daughter?
Damn, I don't know. You read the book, not me.
But at any rate, I know that when they're making out, young Ryan Reynolds is like, make out, make out.
Yeah, it called to mind Rumblefish.
Sophia Coppola?
Yes, to kind of playing that character.
When Diane Lane and Matt
the
Dillon
cock
are
blocker.
making out. Yeah,
Sophia Coppola playing the classic cock blocker,
right.
For the older sibling, trying to keep Matt Dillon from getting that sweet. Yeah, so there's a lot of this stuff going on in the Clutter household. The guys are driving in a rainstorm. They're drinking some vodka and orange soda.
Ready-made, what do they call that drink? Orange blossoms.
Vodka and orange soda?
Yeah, I guess so. That's in the book. They're like, yeah. When they lie later about the hookers, way later in the story to the cops, they talk about this drink they have, but they say they had it with hookers, I think.
Oh, it's a good
In the
combo.
book.
I've had it before.
It does sound pretty good. I've never had it, but it does sound like it would taste good.
There's a lot of gas stations in this story, and they're at one, and then Perry and Dick have this tense moment where Perry has to use the bathroom, and they put hands on each other. Remember this?
Oh yeah, what do they get into it about?
I don't remember. I feel like maybe Dick thinks that Perry's trying to, bail out, and he's the one that instigates it and is grabbing on Perry. And Perry starts to choke Dick, and he tells him, "Never, don't ever touch me."
That's right.
He goes
And we
into
have, of
the
course, in this role of Perry, the real Perry was, I think, like 5'2" or something like that, or 5'4", very short, shorter than 5'4", maybe shorter than Roberts. But Roberts is enough shorter than Dick that it kind of works. It's another thing where I thought maybe Roberts physically could have been better cast, but the emotional character Roberts usually plays is kind of right on for this role. So it was kind of good casting, even though he's not physically just right for Perry, who's also supposed to look Native American, more or less.
Yeah,
but
that's right.
But what I was going to say is Anthony Edwards does read as taller, so it works out. But Perry's in very good shape, like in all the movies. Perry's supposed to be very strong.
Oh, yeah,
He's all into bodybuilding and stuff, and yeah,
he was an inmate. He's a child of cowboys.
Yeah, it's supposed to be strong as a bull, Perry, and be very vain.
Have we discussed Eric Roberts' height on this?
No,
Eric
I don't know if
Roberts
we
is
have.
5'10". Julia is 5'9".
Whoa, I thought she's supposed to be tiny or something.
Emma is 5'2".
Whoa.
Yeah, you know what? Another thing, like we don't really talk about Emma much on this show, but we should, because that's part of the lore.
Robert saga. That's right.
I think Emma was born in '90, so she would have been around 5 or 6 during this.
Was she working yet?
I don't think she shows up in anything till maybe the early 2000s. I could be wrong. We might need to look into that. So Perry goes into the gas station and collapses. And this is the first of a lot of collapsing that he does, which it's all part of his knee, I imagine, right? Or his leg. What did you think? At first I thought, oh, well, does the guy have a bladder infection? He's pissing his pants at a restaurant.
Probably has to do with all the pills he takes all the time.
Yeah.
Fucked his stomach all up or something, or his intestines or kidneys or liver. Who knows?
Well, there are later parts in this miniseries where it's more of his leg, like his leg buckles. So I thought maybe it was that. But in this scene, like, I don't know, he definitely is like clutching at his stomach a little bit more and kind of moaning and crying on the bathroom floor here. And at one point, his bottle of aspirin shatters and pills go everywhere. It's a big mess.
And also when he was in the restaurant and he has that spell in the restaurant, you remember? And he starts being like, "Oh, Perry, fly me away, avenging angel." And he's going all crazy.
Yeah, we forgot to mention that.
Dick is like, "Perry, you're dreaming.
The word is remembering the nuns. Yes.
And that's it in the book, that he would dream about this parrot, and the parrot dreams continued into his adulthood. I'm not sure if this is a real thing or an invention of Truman Capote, but I guess he would have. Here's the thing: Perry would have these dreams when he was a kid.
Okay.
And then even when he was an adult, wherein he would be somewhere, it's like a paradise, and there was these trees with all this fruit in it, or diamonds in these trees, and he would reach up in his dream for the diamonds in this trees, in this land of plenty. But instead, snakes would fall out. Endless snakes to get him would fall out instead of the diamonds, and he could never get the diamonds.
Oh, good.
And then at some point, his dreams changed, and an avenging angel would show up. A parrot, a yellow parrot that was big, would show up, and it would murder all the diamond, or murder all the snakes. And then later he'd have dreams where it would murder all the nuns, and they would tell it no, but it would just get them all. And what it made me think about, if this is a real dream and not a literary invention, is I often have dreams of snakes, and when I wake up I realize they were telling me something was scary and that I should go pee. And I feel like the snake dream may be a warning sign for people who are afraid of snakes to, hey, wake up,
a bladder connection,
and go pee. Now, if you were having a dream about snakes to wake you up from peeing, and then an avenging angel came and killed all the snakes that was a yellow parrot, and you woke up and had wet your bed, what do you think the yellow parrot symbolizes? Your dick pissing.
Yeah, your bladder taking over. Nice. Dick.
The avenging angel was just his cock in his dream peeing everywhere. Oh yeah, and once the avenging angel came in his dream, everything was fine. He could like run around him. He was like king of the world. This must have been like the moments when he was all warm and comfort in his piss in his bed before the nun showed up and beat him.
I like it. It's very, very Freudian. Would you say it's Freudian or Jungian?
I don't know.
Maybe it's Jungian. It's a lot of symbols, and it's not so much about wanting to. Well, there's some Freudian stuff in this story of the mother and whatnot. A lot of Machiavellian stuff going on, but we don't have to talk. We don't have to linger on that. Yeah. Okay. So Perry.
Do we even meet Perry's sister in this version or anything?
No,
I don't think so.
All this mention of her.
Yeah,
because she is the alibi,
and we meet her in Capote. I don't know if we meet her in the old version of the movie in Cold Blood or not, but she's in Capote. She's
the sister is used as an alibi.
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to be going
to Fort Scott,
which is in Kansas, right?
Yes, to get money for, she supposedly has $1,500 or something like that for Perry.
Yeah.
That they're going to go pick up. And that's their alibi.
Dick busts into this bathroom where Perry's on the floor. I think Perry's kind of gathered himself. He goes in and checks on him, and he kind of psychs him back up into the mission. Tells him he looks like a natural killer. He said that in the book, Anthony Edwards, or rather Richard Hitchcock, told people and said many times that he knew Perry was a natural killer. Well, in the 67 one, he says natural born killer. Now in this one, he says natural killer.
I think in the book he says natural killer.
Okay, so I wonder where natural. I guess that then
natural
born killer may have been something that was invented for the script of the 67 film, which eventually would become the title of a film that was written by Quentin Tarantino.
Mm-hmm.
He titled it that, right? They didn't change his title.
No, it was always natural born killers, I think.
Yeah,
that's an expression I would hear before the movie, though, I believe. Yeah, I guess it was in the old movie, says you're a natural born killer. Maybe it just seemed like the expression rolled off the tongue. Maybe people already said it then. I don't know.
Okay, so it's not anything that's just coming from the 67.
I don't know. The answer is I don't know.
Yeah,
no idea.
Well, why didn't you look it up? This is bullshit. You're supposed to have done your research. What are we paying you for? Well, I mean, I would imagine Tarantino is a fan of this film, but I've never heard him talk about it. I don't know if you have.
I cannot find the answer.
Probably from Shakespeare or the Bible. Right around the first hour mark of the miniseries, Perry and Dick finally pull into Holcomb, Kansas, and they arrive at the property of the Clutter family. One thing I wanted to mention is there is this weird, like, the tension that you see on Herb's face and the sadness of the mother. And maybe this is explained more in the book or something. And maybe I'm just a little thick-headed. It is like they sense their own doom.
In which part? I'm sorry.
Just there's this sad, like there's a few scenes of Clutter Senior.
I think he's just sad about his wife and trying to hope for the best.
Yeah,
like she's not her coming out at that. That's the thing. There are many instances in this TV movie where shots of people's faces and reactions don't quite make sense. Like they're vague, and you don't know what the movie's going for. And these are some of the things. And in the book, it would be that the kind of thing where Herb's uncertain because she's might crack up again at any moment, and is she really doing well or not? And she's a person with nervous depression or something, or bipolar or something.
Yeah, and I may have read into it.
There, in fact, we have the scene. I don't know if we've gotten to it yet, wherein he gets a life insurance policy the very day he gets murdered.
That's right. Yeah, which is in both films.
And I was thinking, if this Herb Clutter is 48, maybe he is dying. He gets a clean bill of health from the guy, and he says, "I feel great."
Yeah, so he doesn't have any sense of impending doom.
Yeah, the insurance guy tells him they'll be around. They'll have him around a long time, and he says he feels excellent.
Have you ever felt that tragic events have echoes that go into the past, where people can sense an impending tragedy coming?
People always say that. In fact, Perry says it, that he told his dad that his brother had died, and when Perry had 3 siblings in reality, but by the time he killed the Clutter with Dick Hickok, 2 of them had already committed suicide. One had jumped out a window, but he claimed that she fell, and his brother had, I think, shot himself. No, his brother, crazy. His brother's wife shot herself in the mouth with a shotgun, allegedly due to the brother driving her crazy by being overly jealous all the time. He was a Navy man or something, a military guy or something, and every time he went away, he thought she was being massively unfaithful to him. Once again, probably echoes of the mother, and allegedly she was not. And finally, it was so worn out by it, she put a shotgun in her mouth and blew her brains out. And he laid her body down and hung out with it for like 24 hours, and then put the shotgun in his mouth, reloaded it, and killed himself next to her.
This is Perry's brother?
Yeah, Perry's older brother.
Oh man,
who was like valedictorian of their high school and was successful and shit or something.
Horrible.
And that's what the sister that he's going to, she's the only one that like didn't kill her, didn't have some kind of super tragedy. Yeah, it talks about when the police come and talk to her about it. When she leaves, she pours herself a drink, and she's like shutting the door, hoping that the madness of her family doesn't creep in, and she's kind of lives every day hoping she doesn't suddenly go nuts.
Oh my God. Well, there's definitely a sense of doom in this section of the story, and the
yeah,
cloying...
we've been watching these guys plan these people's murder. Yeah. And it's going slowly.
All of this Wonder Years shit eventually did work on me.
That's what I wanted to ask. Is it was slow, it was annoying, but eventually, did you get into it?
Well, I did, and this, these things that we touched on earlier of the father teaching the son to drive and catching the son smoking and all these little things. It's like it does begin to take on a gravitas because these people are gonna die, and they're gonna die horrifically. And we're getting older, and we used to be kind of edge lords when we were younger. We still have a little bit of that, but man, you get a little bit sentimental about this kind of stuff when you get older.
Sure.
Doom. You start to fixate on doom when you get older. It's creepy and sad. All that stuff. The girl and the Nancy and the horse and all that. And the girl that plays Nancy is very pretty.
Yeah, she in the book is depicted as kind of your super homecoming queen of school.
Margot Finley is Nancy Clutter. Looks like she was in D3, The Mighty Ducks.
Yes, that's why I saw that and still didn't remember. She's probably one of the people they brought in new to the team. They had like an older girl on the team, right? Or maybe she's somebody's girlfriend from the old ones. I remember one of them, right? When they go into international play, they bring in like a girl player, right? A new girl player.
Maybe that was her.
Well, or something might have been her.
I don't remember, but her and Reynolds leaves again he's the last one to see
them alive.
To see them alive.
And this brings in a lot of questions that came in question, like with what is made up or not in the novel. It's like, well, how would anyone know then that Kenyon had been busted for smoking, etc.? A lot of the stuff we see here, it's like nobody probably told that to what's his face. Nancy may have written it in her diary if the diary existed. Who knows? In Capote, we see that Capote and Carter, what's her face, Nell Carter, no, Nell Harper Lee get the diary, not the police. It's very weird. So who knows?
Man, I should have rewatched Capote. The only thing I remember about Capote is the story he tells Capote himself, where his pants rip and his balls fall out.
Oh yeah.
That's all I took away from that film. No, I was a big fan of Capote in the day, which is a Bennett Miller. And I don't remember if that was his first or second film.
It's his second film, first narrative film. He made that movie The Cruise, a documentary.
Oh,
about that guy Speed Levitch.
I got to tell you, I'm a Bennett Miller fan.
I like him too. I liked The Cruise. I like Capote, and I liked Moneyball. I wasn't as huge on Foxcatcher, but it had its moments.
Yeah, so Foxcatcher, Bennett Miller's last film from 2014.
So. Wow, that's been a long time.
Yeah, what's he been up to? Foxcatcher was nominated for a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, it came out before I was even living in LA. That's wild.
Interesting. Be interesting to see what old Bennett Miller's got up his sleeve.
Yeah, rewatching Capote, I think it's the third time I've seen the movie, and I liked it all 3 times quite a bit.
It has a very good vibe to it, and I like Collins as Perry. Definitely. I mean, who would you say is your favorite?
It's a tough call. I guess I'll say that I thought that Collins was probably the best, but I also enjoyed Roberts in this movie as Perry, probably second best.
Yeah, it's a toughie because I mean Collins is obviously in a much more aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, Capote looks great, and Collins has great lines and stuff, and he gets to say the big line that Eric Roberts is denied here. Collins gets to say it.
Yeah.
Blake was the best cast for looks. Collins is also excellently cast for looks. Collins, who is partly Latin American, a Latino gentleman, passes more for Native American looks than Roberts. And also has kind of those big eyes that you kind of like from Perry. Roberts' squinty eyes are kind of not as puppy dog as Collins in that movie. But Collins looked more skinny, and Roberts pulls off more the buffness of Perry. Was supposed to be pretty buff, but Blake kind of looks perfect in the old one. But I don't like that movie that much. The old In Cold Blood. I liked this movie better.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I find the old In Cold Blood just never really involves me. It's my least favorite version of the story of all of them.
Yeah, I like the look of the 67 one.
It's really cool looking. That's the famous thing about it, is it's Conrad Hall, and it has that famous shot of Robert Blake in the window where the rain makes the rain makes his tears on a window, rain on a window.
The 60s one has that kind of jazzy, noir-y score. I wanted to touch real fast.
It feels really connected to In the Heat of the Night, wherein also Scott Wilson would play the mistaken accused guy, and he was Dick Hickok in this.
Yeah, I see that for sure. Small town.
And jazz. Quincy Jones did the score for In the Heat of the Night, and had that theme song by Ray Charles. I don't know who did the score for In Cold Blood, the 60s version.
What did you think about the score for this one?
I liked it. I liked it that with the bluesy score, and it like TV blues. It was by what's his name, Herbie Monroe or something like that. What was the gentleman's
TV
name?
Blues. Oh, I didn't look up the composer.
It was Herbie Manning or something like that. It was Herbie Mann. Yeah, I
TV
watched actually
Blues.
half of another movie he scored, a TV movie from 1998 called Naked City: The Christmas Killer or Christmas Killings.
Whoa.
And it was a Showtime film based on the old Naked City television show and film, starring Scott Glenn and Courtney B. Vance, directed by Peter Bogdanovich.
Damn, yeah.
It wasn't too bad. It was a programmer kind of crime movie,
TV
R-rated crime movie, but different kind of score. Herbie Mann being versatile.
Well, this was a style. I mean, I saw this in a lot of movies. This kind of ominous, kind of unsettling slide guitar.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were elements.
The scores of Ry Cooder in the Walter Hill films.
Totally, and there's elements of this in the Robichaux movie that we watched.
Oh, sure.
In that score,
yeah, that's right. That's right. They had the bluesy score. That's right. Very similar. Yeah, not very creative, but I thought it worked. I was more a fan of it than hearing Roberts' awesome songs.
Well, what did you think about Roberts' singing?
I wasn't sure if he was doing on purpose kind of bad or if he was doing his best or what. I know the real Perry wanted to be a musician. That kind of reminded me of, you and I both read recently Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I thought some of my favorite stuff in the book was them talking about Charles Manson as a musician. And it reminded me of it a lot watching this.
Yeah,
Perry's
Manson was
musical.
never going to be as good as the other folk acts of the...
Yes, and Perry was never going to make it as a musician, but he could play harmonica and guitar, and he wrote some songs.
Well, I had that same feeling you had. Is Roberts trying to sound bad on purpose? But there is something soulful in his performances.
Yeah, it was interesting. I liked the way he did it as an actor. It was painful to listen to.
Yes.
But the way he did it, it seemed like a guy that thinks he's good but isn't. And so it was. I actually thought it was pretty badass.
Good call. Yeah, a guy that's maybe a little too confident.
Which is one of the hardest things, like when you think about it, when somebody gives you a script and you're supposed to play a bad actor or a bad singer. It's like he's not straight up terrible, but he's a little terrible. And it's really good. This is one of I think how did you like Roberts in this movie?
I thought he was fantastic.
I thought it was one of his best. I was surprised he didn't get some kind of nomination. He got one awards nomination from some way out there kind of awards body, but no Emmy or anything or Golden Globe for Roberts for this.
This is
pretty good.
Roberts's wheelhouse. This is his buck.
He's this is probably like maybe the creme de la creme of Roberts roles, right? The ultimate insecure criminal boy, forever boy.
Mm-hmm. Ex-con,
prison film.
ex-con. It's his thing, but I feel like he's perfected it by the time he gets to this one.
Maybe this is he was much better in this, much less annoying in the part than in Runaway Train.
I never felt sorry for Blake's his version of Perry, but
you're very much meant to in the book.
Yeah,
and maybe
I mean they really they say pet the dog or whatever in this one. They really try and make you feel empathy for him here with the leg and the whimpering and the crazy flashbacks and all that stuff. And I'm a sucker.
And saving the girls from rape.
Oh yes, true. Yeah, and just his niceness and his
that's all from the book. But there are a couple moments in the thing, like when he tells Dick, "Don't ever put your hands on me," in the way he holds his own in that fight with Dick. And there's a moment later where he freaks out on somebody, where we get a little hints that Perry is pretty wild. And in the book, there's more of that. There's all the stuff of him being nice and more. They really do play up the feel sorry for Perry element in the book. That's a huge thing. But there's more stuff of like hints that people saying he's gotten increasingly violent he might have a spell of violence. People are scared of him and stuff. And there are hints that he could just flip out and go super nuts. They're not there that much in this movie. They're there more in the book.
Well, we keep putting it off, I think, because we don't want to go there. But in the story, Dick and Perry arrive at the property.
Oh, I thought you were saying we didn't want to go there, but Dick and Perry were clearly ass fucking in prison.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to say about that, honey.
Yeah, you're getting to see what plays out. Yeah, when prison lovers connect years later.
I mean, it's pure speculation, but I would say Perry is the bottom and Dick is the top.
Maybe
if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah, well, like, yeah, I remember that there's a part probably in this one where they talk about how they went to Dick's house, but Dick wouldn't let Perry hang out because she immediately, or Dick's parents wouldn't let Perry hang out because he's not supposed to hang out with convicts, and they immediately made him for one. But in the book, they talked to Dick's mom. She's like, "Oh, I knew what he was immediately with his perfume." It's the first thing she mentions. There are a lot more hints.
Really?
There are a lot of little hints in the book too there's a lot of knocks at Perry especially's masculinity, and just sort of it's stated very clearly in the book that later on that Dick had a lot of pedophiliac desires. But go ahead. Yeah, we didn't want to go there, but we are now.
We didn't want to go into the murder.
Yeah,
I mean, I can talk about homoeroticism any day of the week and not have a problem with that.
It's
But
certainly better than murder.
Dick and Perry are it's more permissible.
To most.
Dick and Perry make their way to the Clutter property. They have their rope and they have their flashlights and they break in, but they can't find the safe.
No.
I think initially they didn't want to wake anybody. They were going to try and not disturb anyone.
Good system.
But if they were to, do you remember, Roy? No witnesses.
No witnesses.
Well, they have to wake up Mr. Clutter because they can't find the safe.
Mm-hmm.
So they rouse him and they start to intimidate him. And he insists, "I don't have a safe. On God, I don't have a safe. As God is my witness," he says, "I have no money here." And Perry has the shotgun, if I remember right. Dick has the knife.
Remember, at some point, Perry has the knife.
Maybe they swap around. They wake up the depressive wife.
Can't remember who has what.
Yeah, I didn't make a note of who had what either. Yeah, they rouse the wife. They throw her and Herb into a bathroom. They go and get Kenyon. They go and get Nancy.
They leave Nancy in her room.
Yeah, but they wake her up.
They wake her up, but they don't go get her. Yeah, they don't bring her down to the basement.
Yes, because Dick goes into the room and he says, "You must be Nancy."
Yes.
So it's like he's had Nancy on his mind.
The real Dick allegedly revealed later that raping Nancy was really his prime motivation to go to the Clutter home at all. It wasn't to try to rob it. He admitted that he had.
Did you sense that when you were watching this?
No, not really. I remembered that.
I did.
Okay, but yeah, it was true. You were right on. That's exactly what he told someone later. He wrote this thing maybe for a psychological evaluation or something to maybe try to get off for being insane. And he wrote that he'd had pedophiliac tendencies after really insisting that he was a normal. He'd always insisted he was normal mind, normal sexuality, not a pervert.
I mean,
and he even calls that? There's a scene also where in the book, Perry had a prison friend once who wasn't a real friend. It turned out he really just wanted to lead him to Christ, and it was a gay dude. And I think in the old one, Scott Wilson calls the guy the F word, and in the book he calls him that. I don't know if they say that in this or even bring that friend up, but yeah, Scott Wilson immediately dismisses this other prison friend as a gay dude, and later on I think that Perry, Robert Blake Perry, says that yeah, he was gay, but he was pretty much the best friend I had. But in the book, he resented him because he realized that he really was just trying to like win his soul to Christ. He didn't want him to be his friend in a true way. That guy's one of the things that writes him a letter that says, "Hey, I noticed that you become increasingly like scarily unstable in moments and stuff, and you got violent tendencies." And he's one of the things that kind of foreshadows the twist ending, which in spite of all the foreshadowing they did, when I first read the book, it was a surprise to me. It really worked on me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first time I was exposed to the twist would have been in Capote, and I forgot it because all I was fixated on was Capote's scrotum falling out of his pants. So by the time we get to it in this, it took me a minute, and then I caught up and was like, oh yeah, there is a twist here. It's handled pretty well. I don't know which one handles it the best, which rendition of this story. I mean, obviously the book, but as far as the films,
question, I guess it comes up so late, you almost don't think about it like until they make it an issue, right? It's one of those things where you don't sit around the whole movie dwelling on it, so it has a good chance to shock you because it only comes up and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, and you're like, what, really? But yeah, also Dewey never really fully believed the twist,
right? Man, so much to
so that would be. So is this the end of episode 1, do you think, of the of the 2-part?
I think right around, maybe it ends a little bit after the events here. Yeah, so in the plot we left off with "You must be Nancy," and Anthony Edwards gets the eye of the rapo. But Perry cock blocks him, like you had
Mm-hmm.
mentioned before. Perry gives him the look of like, don't do this, man. Come on now. So then more stuff. They're in this house for a long time, it feels like, because Perry starts to scour around for valuables. I think even before this, they go through the guy's wallet. They only get $40.
And they take binoculars, a radio.
Yeah, they take a few things. There's a thing of the coin falling under the dresser, which is in both films.
This movie took things from the old movie that aren't in the book too. I'll
Really?
mention one later. Yeah, it did feel like this movie was kind of using things from the movie.
Interesting. Well, eventually I think Nancy does go into the bathroom, because I have in my notes here that Dick comes for her and calls her out of the bathroom, because there's a moment between Dick and the mother where she says, you leave her alone.
Oh.
And Dick is like, oh, don't worry. She's going to be fine. I'm going to take good care of her. So as Perry is out looking for other valuables, Dick sees his moment where he can do his dirty duties. And he does. He gets her away and back into a room somewhere. When Perry comes back upstairs and yanks Anthony Edwards off of her.
Uses that famous Perry Smith strength.
That's right. Yeah, he pulls him off. And so I have in my notes here that we don't see much in this version.
Oh,
Perry
yes, and immediately
goes
when
back to the car.
another thing about their homoeroticism, immediately, like one of the first things you learn about Perry is that he was attracted to Dick because Dick seems so masculine.
Yeah, you can sense that in this, even though it's not said. There's some praying that goes on. There's a Bible verse that's hanging on the wall in the bathroom that the camera focuses on.
Oh, yes.
I can't remember. I can't
remember what it was either.
But yeah, the father is praying, and Perry goes.
May have been that the Lord comes like a thief in the night or something dumb like that.
Maybe so. And
I don't know, probably not.
I feel like this installment of the miniseries or of the 2-part thing ends here, because we see Perry in the car crying at everything that has transpired. And then when we pick back up, it's the next day. So we don't see anything else that's happened. It's a Sunday. All this happened on a Saturday night. Some church mates show up at the Clutter house.
And they just come in after nobody answers for a second.
Yeah, it's very strange for them. Like, they've never been late for church, and this is weird. And so they knock, and then someone else shows up and says, well, we need to go inside because this is unusual. And they investigate the house. A young lady goes upstairs and opens the bathroom door, and there's a loud scream. We know what she's seen. And we see, you said in the book, Perry talks in his sleep a lot, right?
I don't know. No, I mean, he dreams. He has those dreams that they kind of like made into vocal things in the movie of him having sort of a daydream flip out in that restaurant. But in the night, that's really like what he dreams at night in the book. I don't know if he talks or not in his sleep.
We're back in the Hotel American somewhere in Kansas, and Perry is in the room and he's talking in his sleep. And Dick is back at his parents' house, and he's like on the couch.
Sleeping through this is the big thing. His father never knew him to sleep through a basketball game.
They're trying to watch some basketball. Yeah. And he's passed out on the couch. So at the scene of the crime, Sam Neal,
back from Fort Scott,
Officer Dewey shows up. Officer Dewey from Scream. David Arquette shows up.
That's right, Dewey.
And I think he says to the press or to somebody, he says he vows to solve this crime.
That's right. He says, now we don't know if it's one person or four or many killers. I don't know.
Kind of doing a weird.
It don't much matter.
Sam
4 people from our community are dead.
Yeah, he says it's the worst crime he's ever seen. And around this time, we see this.
But we also find out, I'm not sure in this one or not, but at some point when he talks to the press, I think he says that the bodies were sexually unmolested.
All of them?
Yeah, we find out Dick at no point he never did get to rape them.
Okay, yeah, because he is clothed when Perry rips him off.
He never got
made
it
it
on
that far.
No. So thank goodness, they didn't die rape. If they'd done better job with the mom being in her nervousness, I think that shot of her being the last one alive, going on her eye. You just imagine this person whose whole life is paranoia and sadness, and the last moments of her life are listening to the rest of her family being shot to death and with shotguns in the middle of the night while she waits for them to come get her. Scary stuff.
The confirmation of everything she.
Everything.
Life.
Yeah. That's right.
I was
it's
right.
It's just as bad as you thought, man.
I was right. It was coming the whole time. Horrible. That's the fucking stuff of nightmares, my friend. Well, okay, I was going to mention the boot print because they do discover this very significant boot print. It's a graphic of some kind. I couldn't make out what it was.
It was supposed to be a diamond print, I think, boot print.
Yeah. So instantly I'm thinking, oh, Fugitive Among Us.
On the trail of Roberts again for this.
Eric Robertson his boot print films.
Says that's his signature.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see here. Sam Neill, he's kind of starts to become more prominent here. And I see what you mean about him trying to do weird Kansas accent.
It's rough. It's like accents are tough, man, once again. And I'm willing to forgive them more, but here he had so little to do in general. I thought he would be a much more of the movie based on the book and based on Capote.
He's solid and he's there and he's got his fedora hat.
If he had more to do as a performer, the accent probably wouldn't have annoyed me but become to define his performance for me because he just didn't have much to do.
Sam Neill is interesting. How do you feel about him?
He's charismatic. There's something likable about Sam Neill in the movies. He's compelling in some way.
I don't know if I would say he's charismatic. I would say he's compelling for sure.
Yeah. There's something very watchable about Sam Neill. I don't know what. I don't know. Yeah, what the thing is.
Yeah, I wish I had more like older actors I could compare him to, but I can't really think of anybody.
He reminds me of Bruce Greenwood, but I'll probably find him. Maybe like him more than Bruce Greenwood. There's something annoying about Bruce Greenwood, but I think Bruce Greenwood could be a stronger actor. I don't know something about Sam Neill that I like, and I don't know what it is. I don't know. I don't even know if he's in that movie. Many movies I like or anything.
He reminds me
of
Jurassic Lee Park. Greenwood.
Maybe the first thing I ever saw him in was Jurassic Park, and I like that.
I know Greenwood, that Sam Neill's proud to be American. Yeah, I'm proud to be an American.
Sure. I didn't know that's who saying that.
I don't know. I like Sam Neill. He's interesting. I would like to kind of go back through his filmography.
This is like a year before he does Event Horizon, where Event Horizon comes out, where it's he and Lawrence Fishburne are co-leads, right? And he's the real lead. This is an odd choice for him. I wonder if he got paid a ton.
In the Mouth of Madness is around this time period. And
probably a couple of years before.
Park. Yeah. I think the movie that really broke him would have been Dead Calm.
Dead Calm. I've never seen it.
Oh, Dead Calm was a rental back when I was a kid. Like we just took a gamble on it. Didn't know anything about it. Really stuck with me. And that was the movie I think that
was it a remake of Knife in the Water?
It's very similar to that film, but I haven't seen Dead Calm in so long that I don't know if it's
similar enough to call it a remake.
Connected, but I know it broke Nicole Kidman.
Yeah, Billy Zane,
Sam Neill. Yeah, it's a pretty extreme flick, if I remember right.
Check it out.
I saw it with my dad. I'm sure my mom was there as well, and I just remember it being like all three of us were pretty impressed by it when I was younger. But that was the first thing, and then Sam Neill's the heavy in it.
Oh,
and so I remember when I saw him in Jurassic Park, it was kind of funny. When you're young and you're used to characters is one thing. So we talked about Lithgow some episodes back, and it's funny you mentioned that probably our first memory of Lithgow is as a villain, and it would have been in Santa Claus the movie, because I don't think we would have seen Blowout or Buckaroo Banzai. I didn't see Buckaroo Banzai till later, but
not till college.
There is that funny thing when I saw Harry and the Hendersons, where I'm like, oh yeah, I do know this guy as a bad guy from the few things I've seen him in, and it does a brain twist to you when you're a little kid. It's funny.
Maybe, I don't know, maybe so, but I don't remember feeling that way that much about, say, Dolph Lundgren from Masters of the Universe and Rocky IV. I knew it was the same guy. I don't think it blew my mind that he was so villainous in Rocky IV and then a hero in Masters of the Universe.
Roy, all buff guys were heroes to me when I was young.
No matter their role.
I loved Drago in a weird way in Rocky IV, where I was like, yeah, I like this guy. It's because I'm a communist. That's why.
That's funny. He was pretty cool.
All right, let's get back to the film Fugitive Among Us.
Yeah. So Peter Strauss is pretty upset about that lady.
There's some
trying to convince her she got raped by Eric Roberts.
Yeah, there's some suit buying that happens here with Dick and Perry.
Oh yes, Dick loves to write bad checks, and he likes to run con. And you kind of wonder if him constantly telling Perry, "You're a natural killer," I always knew it, is him kind of conning Perry to go along on this thing,
into doing his dirty bidding.
Yes, and him sort of knowing that Perry is so alone in the world that just having a friend, Perry will come because somebody asked him to be there.
Yeah, we know these guys have committed a gruesome murder, but we have kind of a weird, fun scene here of Eric
Of the
Roberts
con.
trying on the different suits
And
that are all
Anthony Edwards
ill-fitting.
stealing the guy's lighter.
Yeah, he borrows the lighter to light the cigarette and then pockets it and all this stuff, and it's kind of cute and fun and
kind of crazy because Anthony Edwards would have the crazy eye, and Roberts would look all crazy. This is kind of a hard scene to buy that they could do so well with, like, conning people all smooth, but I guess they did because they wrote a lot of bad checks.
I guess it was just easier to do back in 59.
Yeah, well, like, I love the line readings later from skipping way ahead when they're busted, when they ask Dick how he could get these people to write him to take his checks, and
yes,
the secret is people are dumb. He's
Yeah.
like, people are dumb.
I made a note of that too. I liked it. So we bring in, there's some other dudes that start to show up here. There's some investigators, and we know these guys. We've seen these guys in some movies.
Yes, the one guy plays a cop in everything from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas to Bosch. The guy that plays Dunce.
Yes.
His name is Troy Evans.
We know
and
Troy.
Don S. Davis as Roy Church and Leo Rossi as Harold Nye.
We know Troy Evans, probably most popular for everyone else from Big Love. He had a big role in Big Love.
Oh, I never saw that.
But yeah, the super uptight Troy Evans always has a flat top haircut, by the way. The uptight husband cop guy in Fear and Loathing.
Yes.
Ton of stuff. Always I always like to see Troy Evans.
He's fun. He's fun on that show. I watched season 1 of Bosch. I didn't enjoy it that much. At some point I vow to give season 2 a shot in honor of my parents asking me to, but Troy Evans was good on Bosch for sure. He's one of the enjoyable parts.
So he plays a Kansas Bureau of Investigation agent.
Yes,
which is crazy. Like, so states have
yes, in fact, what didn't they brought in the KBI and maybe the OBI on helping to catch John Dillinger, right?
It's not something you see very often.
In the movie Public Enemies, Stephen Lang plays a KBI agent, I believe, who ends up shooting John Dillinger in the end. Spoiler.
Yeah, what's his name? Troy Evans. Troy Evans start to bother Bobby, played by Ryan Reynolds, who is Nancy's boyfriend.
Yeah, here we get them questioning people that they question they question the neighbor and ask him why he couldn't hear the shotgun blasts.
Yeah, and how about the guy who
why he burned all their shit? It's the same guy, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, didn't hear it and then burned all the stuff. He's like, "That's what I was supposed to do," and stuff. And then they ask him not to leave town in case they want to ask him some stuff. And he's like, "Yeah, of course I won't leave town. I'm not planning. I'll be here for whatever you need." And then they look at each other like, "Okay, this guy's off the hook."
They question the insurance salesman.
Yes.
Who sold her
Which, of course,
policy
the life insurance that day, and with a double indemnity for accidental death. That was probably some wild news to that guy.
Yeah. So now that you say what you say, I'm sure a lot of this stuff is like way more fleshed out in the book.
That's the thing. This is there's a lot more of this in the book, a lot more people they talk about, and people just in town being like, who probably did it? It was some of those other Methodists, people jealous of him, somebody he cheated on at something years ago, they go talk to, or that thought he got cheated. They talk to all these different people, and it's a national news story. Yeah. And everybody in town starts suspecting each other. And what we hear in, I think, Infamous, not Capote, he talks about that was his impetus to write In Cold Blood, was he went there when the manhunt was starting, or the investigation was starting, in order to get in order to get the thing about the town, the town falling apart was his idea. What happens to this small town once somebody's killed. And you have in the book people talking about, oh yeah, and everybody, they want to buy locks, can't buy them fast enough. That might have been before even the murder, a sign that things aren't what they quite were.
Well, during this investigation, we start to see Dick and Perry. They make their way to Mexico.
Yeah, they actually go to Mexico. They tell this guy they're salesmen at the border.
Yeah, I forget the Spanish word for salesman.
Vendedores or something.
Vendedores. Yeah, vendedores. There's also something we forgot to mention when it's brought up in this scene here. I have a note of it. Perry killed a black guy in Vegas.
Allegedly. He told.
Allegedly.
In the joint or somewhere, he told Dick that he whipped a black man to death in Vegas.
Yeah, and Dick loves it.
Yeah,
because more than once he's like, "Tell me that story how you killed that, in Vegas," and it gets brought up more than once.
Indeed.
Yeah,
in Vegas, indeed.
is.
But yes, which once he's in, that seems to be like the tall tale of Perry. It's murdering a guy. He also tells his sister at one point, he flipped out on his sister one time when he hung out with her. And he told her that he threw a man off a bridge in Japan for no reason at all, just because it like popped in his head to do or something.
Yes, Perry went to Japan and he's
in the military.
Yeah, and he's always like the manners of the people there.
Yeah, but apparently he flipped out and threw a guy off a bridge.
It's a very well-mannered thing to do. During this section
allegedly,
of this,
according to him.
Allegedly. So I'm thinking about in this section of the miniseries, another film from 96 that reminded me of this. That was a big influential movie for you and I, was Wes Anderson's first movie, Bottle Rocket.
Oh, sure. Texas, North Texas too. Or no, maybe not North Texas, more like Houston area, I guess.
You know, guys that they try and pull off a crime and they don't end up with much money from it at all.
No,
they go on a lam. They're just into the romance of
and it's a lot less romantic to Dick, which is like Dick's aims in life and things are he seems like he just wants to live from moment to moment or something. But yeah, they go to Mexico and they hook on with, are we to the part yet where they're with the German dude
on the boat?
Yeah,
it's right around this time. Yeah.
So like they hang out, they meet this German guy, like Dick picked him up or something, even though the guy had another young male companion with him already.
Okay.
And he took him out fishing on their boat, and Perry caught this big fish, but would never take his pants. He would never get into swim trunks. He didn't want them to see his legs, but he went topless. And the guy in the movie, we get the guy taking loving shots of Perry's body with a film camera, with a Bolex. There you go.
It looks like
it sure did. And well, Dick is up on a thing with some ladies, or a lady.
This German feller is obviously, he likes the men.
Yeah, and he's enjoying Perry's physique.
The homoeroticism that's kind of the undercurrent of a lot of this story. You do wonder if, like, I mean, do you think that Capote, when he discovered this stuff, it was like that was a little bit of fuel for him to keep going?
I'm sure it was interesting. I mean, wouldn't it be to anyone?
Yeah, but I mean, that
because he was gay. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, sure. It's like,
well, why not? Yeah.
He has a fascination with that.
I mean, in the movie Infamous ends with Perry and Capote making out.
Oh,
Capote starts cheating. I think they maybe bone, or maybe Perry takes Capote in a corner and tells him he's going to fuck him like he fucked him with the book.
Yeah, and the affection is
then
really,
they make out, and then there's
more
affection
subtle in Capote.
Well, in Capote, you wonder if that's where it's going, but then Capote is about a also mind idea of the artist as monster.
Yes, and Capote as a sensitive artist who recognizes that in Perry,
or then basically gets him killed to finish his book. It's kind of like Capote is sort of like Life Lessons with Nick Nolte from New York Stories, the Martin Scorsese movie. It's about the artist as monster who has a person and then leaves the person up a creek to achieve his aims.
Yeah, that's a good call. Interesting. Perry, what a good character. So there's this section in Mexico where they're kind of living it up, but I mean, what are they living it up on?
Not
because
much.
They didn't end up with anything.
The radio is good stuff for stealing and pawning. Apparently radios and TVs are good for pawning, apparently.
Yes, a car gets sold at one point.
Yeah, they sell the car.
There's a lot of arguments about money happening in this section.
And there's part where Perry overpowers Dick again in bed, and Dick's with a whore.
Yes,
and
a rhyming shot of the upside down thing of Roberts looking
and the mom. Yes,
from when he was a child.
But it's Dick and the lady of the night that he's been spending all their money on, ladies of the night.
And Perry's still hung up on this treasure hunting thing. He thinks they're going to go to Cozumel and find this
or
treasure.
Buy a boat. They were also talking about like taking people out on boat trips for money.
Yeah, they're going to
a
sell
boat. And that was what the car was for, the boat.
Yes, and so it's just everything goes sideways in Mexico, and also Perry's guitar gets stolen, and this is a really sad scene here of Perry saying, like, man, it's different when this is a guitar that I made music with and like put my voice to, and it's
you play
gone
guitar
now.
Do you feel that way? Do you have a sentimental nature towards your guitar?
I do, because I've had the same one for 20 years.
Oh wow.
It's the guitar I learned how to play guitar on. So yeah,
that's
I
how
mean,
I got t-shirts that are like that.
yeah, articles of clothing.
I'm like, oh man, I've had this since 1999.
Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, you develop and
I like to get out and look at the pit stains and put my lips
smell them.
around them, see if I can compass my bite around them.
Back in the world of the investigators, Sam Neal and his boys, they pay a visit to Dick's parents.
Oh yeah, we're in the book a lot.
So the mother discloses this weekend trip thing. He's like, yeah, they were going to go
to Fort Scott
to the sister, like we talked about. And then she just very easily gives away that it happened the very weekend of the murders. That's a good tip,
right.
Gigantic thing.
But they wouldn't be on, would they be on these guys before Floyd Wells hits them up?
Yeah, we skipped over that.
One of my favorite parts is
in
Floyd,
this
Brad
section.
Greenquist as Floyd Wells. I thought was awesome.
What's the actor's name?
Brad Greenquist. I didn't recognize him. I guess he's just like, he's a character. He's been around forever and he works all the time. I didn't recognize him, but I really loved him as Floyd Wells.
Yeah, so they bring in Dick's old cellmate who tipped him off about the Clutter house in this section of the story, Floyd Wells, who also rats out Perry to the authorities. He says, yeah, he wouldn't do anything without his guy Perry.
Yeah, he told him if he ever had a score going on, he could count on his old cellmate Perry.
Yes.
Old Dick likes to talk.
Yeah, so Perry gets implicated now.
Perry and Brad Greenquist is on like high energy. He's got the accent working, but man, it all worked for me. He was like something out of like a Scorsese flick or something.
He's got his hands in the handcuffs and he's like, come on, can't you take my jewelry off? I liked that.
He and LQ Jones were just like, you couldn't do better. LQ Jones is Perry. You saw Perry's dad played by forget what actor, who's also enjoyable in the old version and In Cold Blood. You do not see Perry's dad, I believe, in Capote or Infamous, but LQ Jones, you couldn't do better as the lone wolf, as he's known mostly in the book.
Yeah, he's good. They're about to go see him.
Yeah, but yeah, Brad Greenquist turns him on to it. But yeah, then they go see Dick's parents. They tell them about the trip to Fort Scott.
In this time period, Dick and Perry, they go back to Kansas. They've like pretty much exhausted everything and all their resources in Mexico.
Dick always kind of knew he was going to end up going back to America, not live in Mexico forever. He's not just going to live there. Dick has a weird relationship with his parents where he loves them, but he's a bad seed, but he wants to see them again.
Well, it's very dangerous for Perry because he still has the warrants.
He has the current warrants. And yeah, and then they murdered some folks. So they're going back.
But they're going back because they're not that smart of guys.
Well, they're not. You realize that if they hadn't murdered the people, they probably never get busted for anything. If they hadn't murdered the people, Floyd Wells never reads about it in the newspaper. The print is never left in the blood.
It's a minor crime.
It's maybe, I mean, they definitely assaulted and battered the people, and they technically committed grand larceny. But is anybody going to track them for that long and really look that hard for these people? And they could have like denied it, and there probably wouldn't have been enough evidence to connect them to it without the boot print and the blood.
In my fantasy version of the way the crime goes down, maybe even Dick gets to have his moment with Nancy. Not kill her, and then everything turns out fine. As long as they don't go back to Kansas.
Well, what a sweet fantasia that is.
So these guys go back. I think they take a bus, right? They buy some bus tickets, but they don't make it all the way because then they have to start hitchhiking. And the hitchhiking is more of a thing in the older movie. But in this one, we kind of just see them like it's in the wintertime and they're back in Kansas and they end up in this barn during like it's snowing and raining.
This is another thing that reminded me of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with the hitchhiking. One of the major themes of that novel is don't pick up hitchhikers. And the major theme, especially of the that comes
in
up
Hollywood,
in here,
it is. Hitchhikers are fun and it's harmless, right?
No, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in the novel, there's a big element of there are two hitchhikers people shouldn't have picked up. Spoilers. And that's what, like, at some point, the Cliff Booth character makes a whole thing like this all happened because your dad picked up a hitchhiker. And in this movie and in the novel in Cold Blood, a big moral would be never pick up a hitchhiker. Like, it's like these guys are just waiting around to murder you and steal your car and shit.
In the movie, it's much more innocent. It's like, seems like a fun thing that people did in the 60s.
Yeah. I guess in the book, they get it that once they are the hitchhikers, eventually they get another car, and which I get later, I think, in the movie as well. But they start trying to pick up hitchhikers and murder them and rob them.
Yeah, which isn't in the miniseries.
No, Perry's going to hit their heads with a big rock. Oh, maybe that's when they're hit. No, that's when they're hitchhiking.
Choke them with a
they get
with
picked up by a nice guy, and they're going to murder him.
And but then it gets foibled by there's a military guy hitchhiking in the old film.
Wants to pick him. He's like, I never can turn down a serviceman or something like that.
Well, in this one, Dick and Perry end up in this barn, just like probably in the book and in the other film. They find a car in the barn and they steal it. They leave Kansas and they go to Las Vegas.
And at some point when they were in Mexico, they had the part where he mailed his stuff to Vegas.
Yeah.
Right. Perry has all this crap and it drives Dick nuts, all this shit. But Perry kind of mailed it to himself in Vegas to go pick up.
Right.
Or maybe he didn't mail it to, he mailed it to himself. Yeah, he mailed it to himself.
In Vegas.
Yeah.
Would you like to take a short break?
Sure.
There's a race of men who don't fit in. Their spirits can't sit still. They break the hearts of all they can and roam the world at will. They range the field, they rove the flood and climb the mountain's crest. 'Cause they got the curse of the gypsy's blood and don't know how to rest.
And the seasons, they go round and round, and the painted ponies go up and down. We're captive on the carousel of time. It's a Joni Mitchell song. She's still alive. I saw a video of her the other day. She doesn't look very alive.
All right, I'm back when you're back.
I'm here. I was singing some Joni Mitchell.
Both sides now.
And the seasons, they go round and round.
Just another victim of the white lines on the freeway.
Coyote.
Hey, Coyote.
Back to In Cold Blood. Dick and Perry end up in Vegas. Authorities are on their tail. Somehow the authorities end up they check before this, they go to Klondike City in Alaska.
And hang out with LQ Jones.
Yes, and they're asking about the son who hasn't heard from Perry in some time.
With LQ Jones as Caleb Ducato.
What all do you remember from this interaction?
He really just talks up his past and talks about the time he and Perry built the place where no one came, and he talks about he writes the thing for his son on another occasion where his son was like up before parole board or something.
Yeah, doesn't he say it was a 13-page letter? Yes,
and the letter is in the book and they read it in the next scene, but basically he says he doesn't know where his son is, which is what the Hickox said about Richard too.
Yeah, Sam Neill and his guys are just going on this odyssey of America, and they end up in Vegas before I think Dick and Perry even get there.
Yes, I'm getting confused in here with the timeline as well, because at some point he shipped the thing to himself in Vegas. They pick it up, we see. Then he left it at the hotel in Vegas, and then they leave to go somewhere else. The KBI go to the hotel, and they talk to the hotel keeper, who is played also in a role pared down a bit, but with some of the same dialogue of the book, My Daughter Married Big, is Stella Stevens. Did you recognize Stella Stevens?
I recognize the lady, and I know the name, but
she is a kind of an unfortunate case to me, as far as I know, of a person that she was gorgeous with huge jugs, it seemed, when she was younger. But on the flip side, she could really act. She's the lead in What's Too Late Blues with Bobby Darin, the John Cassavetes movie.
Okay, yeah.
And then she was in Ballad of Cable Hogue, and then she's in just tons of TV and crap where she just probably plays a ditzy blonde a lot. And this, she plays kind of a sad, washed up old lady, which, she's an older actress here. And you can see this is probably a good role for her here, but meatier in the book even.
Oh my gosh, I'm looking at pictures of her.
She tells them that she expects them to come back because he left all this crap. And in the crap is where they find the damned boot.
Yes. They check a register. You have to remember, Perry was staying at this hotel by himself.
Ah.
This was one of his spots.
Haunts, yeah. And the lowest type of hotel, I think, is what rooming establishment is how Dewey would call it.
The lady, this Stella Stevens, the concierge or whoever she is, she likes Perry. Why are you bothering this boy for? She says, he's a quiet boy. I forget what she says, but she's on his side. And yeah, all this stuff with the box that he's having delivered around plays in. I did want to say 3 months have passed. We see this because they have a memorial for the Clutters, and someone says it's been 3 months since the murders. And there's some childhood friend of Nancy who's talking about the horse. The horse was named Babe. Ryan Reynolds is crying in the crowd of the people there at the memorial. Very sad.
You remember thinking, reading the book, that it was going to turn out that chick was going to start dating Ryan Reynolds because they start kind of hanging out. But maybe they did briefly hang out. I don't know if they really dated or not, but hanging out just ended up making them think of Nancy a lot, so they stopped hanging out.
Sam Neill and his guys they're also starting to talk about what's their strategy going to be. They know they don't have enough evidence to nail these guys, but they know it's these guys. So they're like, if we can find them, we're not going to get anything unless we get a confession.
They need confessions.
No conviction without a confession. So Perry and Dick are eventually in Vegas, and they're kind of just scraping by. There's this whole section of Eric Roberts at a laundromat smoking cigarettes.
This part, I was also thinking, what percentage of crazy robberies are based on people's prison tales to each other, and somebody being like, you know what, I'll commit that robbery that guy's talking about. That a lot.
Yeah, it made me think of, most famously, Night of the Hunter. Robert Mitchum's character finds out about that, the widow from the cellmate,
who is what's his face, the James Arness's brother.
Does he?
No, biography, Peter Graves.
Yeah, our buddy Peter Graves. I saw him one time.
Oh yeah, and this is another thing. This sequence where Perry's coming out with the junk, and where they're in the restaurant at one point and stuff. After, in episode 2, are a couple more moments of silent things where Dick's looking at Perry and having moments. And looking back after seeing the movie, I was like, oh, maybe they're trying to have moments where Dick's kind of remembering what happened with the murders and thinking about how things went, and them kind of appraising each other, knowing what they know from the murders that we don't know from the movie not showing us the murder yet. And I thought the movie wasn't all that great with those. There were a couple of weird moments where you're not sure exactly what the film's trying to convey in the character's eyes.
Yeah, this laundromat scene.
What'd you think of this laundromat part?
Well, it's where the paranoia is kind of starting to set in, or just the exhaustion of being on the lam. That's what I got from it. What'd you get from it?
I thought when they were on the boat with the decadent German man, that maybe he should have reminded them of Clutter for a second. Maybe they could have just cut to Clutter really fast when that guy was on screen.
Do you think they offered that to Udo Kier?
I don't know. This part where he's in the laundromat waiting, I was really into that. I really felt for Roberts. And when Dick finally shows up, because I felt like Roberts thought Dick had abandoned him, and I really felt bad for Roberts in that scene.
Yes, it's paranoia and also a fear of abandonment.
Yeah, both. And I felt like I felt sad for him when Dick shows up with the car. I felt really good for Roberts. I was like, I'm kind of with this movie right here, because I actually feel happy for Perry that Dick showed back up and didn't just leave him. And Dick shows up with cash from running hot checks. He was running hot and didn't come back.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. I thought it may have been gambling, just because.
That's what he makes it sound like, gambling. I'm pretty sure he said a run of luck, but I'm pretty sure he means from writing checks.
Well, they're staying at the hotel that the authorities had checked.
Yeah, this is confusing.
A little bit earlier.
Or maybe they go in to check in to the hotel. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just going back, and the cops have been waiting on them.
And they're waiting right inside the door when they get there.
Yeah, and old Stella Stevens is kind of...
They get busted. Yeah, they get tackled over the thing, and Stella Stevens gives a crazy look of kind of shock and sadness, registering two things at once there.
Yeah.
Classic good sadness. Stella Stevens fashion.
I was mostly focused on the jugs, even though she's a bit older. So we have Dick and Perry are finally in custody. They start being interrogated separately. So the boot
this was what I really loved this, and it reminded me of another movie, Screwed, when they bust Norm Macdonald and Dave Chappelle, and they get questioned separately, which is to me the only good sequence of a movie that should be much better. It's made by Scott Alexander and Larry Karaszewski, or however you say that guy's name, and then
the guys that wrote Ed Wood.
Yeah, and so many other movies. movies, right? And then and it stars two of the funniest people, if not the two funniest people on the planet, and it's not that good. But that part where they get busted and they get questioned separately and just immediately turn on each other with extreme cowardice, it's really funny, I think.
Well, Perry's more stoic.
Yeah, and Dick is having fun with it, spreading the
he
line
is.
of
He's
bullshit.
like-
They both talk about the trip to Fort Scott, and they've kind of got a story worked out, it seems like, between them.
Anthony Edwards is pretty wonderful in these.
In this I thought they were both, this whole sequence of them getting questioned, I thought was pretty awesome.
Dude,
I was
this
like,
is my
I
favorite
made a note,
Anthony
try
Edwards.
not to be gripped by this.
I love Gilbert in Revenge of the Nerds, but man, Anthony Edwards is like he works as Dick in this to me.
I thought he was a lot of fun. I thought he was fun. I thought Roberts was fun. I liked them both. I thought that maybe, I don't know who were up for Emmys that year. Maybe we could look, but maybe they should have been nominated for Best Actor.
I tried to look up if they were nominated. I know they didn't win.
They were not. The movie was nominated for a couple primetime Emmys, I think, for editing and stuff, which this is a
Maybe
very
like
well
best-
edited sequence right here. The intercutting of their interviews is probably what got this nomination. I think maybe sound editing too.
Didn't
for
you
something
say
else.
best cast?
That was a different thing. Maybe best casting. But I
Yeah.
don't know if that was a different thing or this. It might have been this, but I'm not sure.
The boot print gets brought back, and that's really what starts to get Dick like really worked up.
Mhm.
Dick takes his boot off and throws it across the table at Sam Neal, I think is who it is. And there's mention of we have a witness, right?
A little living witness, which Perry thought of earlier. And Dick said he should go back into prison and stab his heart with a fork, which with what we're about to find out is an interesting thing that he does, that Perry doesn't say anything after that or do anything. I watched it twice and I tried to read if Perry makes any kind of thing when Dick says he's going to murder this guy, and he doesn't. There really isn't a moment there where he reapprehends Dick.
I remember the fork, Anthony Edwards thrusting a fork into the counter.
He was talking about maybe going into getting himself rebusted for writing bad checks to get thrown in with Floyd Wells and murder him so he can't rat them out, and for giving them bad information about the safe.
Oh yeah.
He's like, boom, right through the heart, baby. It's all crazy.
Yeah. Imagine stabbing a fork into a countertop
That
and it
hard.
sticks.
That was crazy.
Only in the cartoon world of this film.
We
But
didn't
it
speak
is,
on yet that this is a movie directed by forget the man's name even now, but he has a long career and he's done a lot of different kinds of movies, kind of maybe hacky, some would say, but I would say solid. He did that movie Over the Edge with Matt Dillon about with the teens from 1979. That's pretty enjoyable. And he also did a movie where I watched recently, Project X. He's the director of.
Yeah, the director's name is
Jonathan Kaplan.
And
he directed White Line Fever, which I've never seen. That was his first movie, I think.
He directed probably the best film of 1999, Broke Down Palace.
I saw that. It wasn't that bad.
Roy, do you remember your ED joke about Broke Down Palace?
No.
Something about Broke Down Phallus, but you don't remember that?
No.
Yeah. Me neither. Something about Broke Down Phallus. Yeah, he's had a storied, strange
15
career.
minutes into watching. Who are the Kate Beckinsale? I got a Broke Down Phallus. I don't know.
He made some John Cougar Mellencamp music videos. Interesting. He's worked with Rod Stewart.
Looks like he's gotten tons of work over the years. Moved all into TV. Maybe after Broke Down Palace might have been his last theatrical film.
Well, you're a big enthusiast for this Fallen Angels show. He directed an episode
too.
of that.
Yeah. I didn't watch it though. I got really into watching all that Capote stuff.
Well, now here's an interesting thing. So this Kaplan guy, he directed 40 episodes of ER.
Oh, and he also did, with Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, so him and Edwards get a rapport going.
Not till later. Maybe they formed their rapport on this. I feel like he came on to ER after this movie.
Yeah, you're right, because he directed from 97 to 09. So did Edwards replace...
But he did a lot of movies. Unlawful Entry, Love Field.
Was Edwards on ER with Clooney, or did he replace Clooney?
He was on ER from the start.
Okay.
I think, Noah Wyle and he and Clooney were three of the start guys, with Ron Eldard and William William H. Macy and Juliana Margulies, and I forget who else.
Buddy, I'm here to tell you I never
Who
saw
else?
one episode of ER.
I've seen a couple over time. I never got into it. I saw the one Tarantino directed when it was new, maybe a couple others. I think when
I remember
96, when I watched Fargo, after that, I tried to catch William H. Macy on ER. I also recognized Ron Eldard after seeing Sleepers.
Remember George Clooney and Noah Wiley had the famous Caesar haircuts.
Ron Eldard, not seen enough on screen, so always an actor I enjoy.
I think Anthony Edwards may have already been bald by the time
Gotcha came out.
Well, I don't know. This is 96, so Edwards is not bald yet in this film. You think he's wearing a hairpiece?
But he would star in the
Cold
film
Blood?
Not Bald Yet 3 years later. So
I wonder what would happen if I Googled when did Anthony Edwards go bald. I just always feel like he was bald in ER. He's definitely bald in Zodiac.
he feels bald to be an ER, but maybe he wasn't. I remember picturing him
So-
balding with a bald crown and
It-
receding hairline
Yes,
and
sir.
with glasses.
I'm looking at pictures of Anthony Edwards as we speak.
Maybe they
And
gave
he
him
is
hair.
very balding in ER, so I'm thinking he has much thicker hair here.
Maybe it's a thing for the part.
They do that goddamn thing in films where they make people wear wigs.
Idiots.
I hate it. Well,
He also, Jonathan Kaplan did one of those Rebel Highway films for Showtime. Most
I don't
notable,
remember that.
Showtime made 3 or 4 movies called Rebel Highway that were either based on unmade scripts or just weird ideas. That were another thing like Fallen Angels were old timey, but it was 4 TV movies. And Robert Rodriguez made one with David Arquette and Salma Hayek called Road Racers. I
Whoa.
forget who else is in that. Maybe Vincent Gallo or somebody. I can't remember. And there's also one made by John McNaughton that was written by Sam Fuller called Women in Prison
yeah.
with Anne Heche, I think. I remember I've seen Rebel Racers, or whatever that's called. The other ones I haven't seen.
Road Racers. So this would have been maybe before Desperado.
I think it may have been released around the same time as Desperado, but I'm not sure now.
I can't remember if Desperado was 95 or
I believe it was 1995.
like the year after Pulp.
What, August of 95 or something, or September, like a year after Pulp Fiction or something maybe.
Well, back in Cold Blood world, Dick eventually fesses up.
Yes, but he says that Perry killed him.
Yeah, he spills his guts.
He
as
tried
Perry
to stop
says.
Perry.
Spills his guts all over the floor, as Perry says.
Yes, that's Perry's version of Bubbles in the Blood, because he also says that Dick spilled his guts all over the floor in the Clutter house.
And we go into a really pretty gruesome flashback here. And this might have even been earlier. I should have made a note of this. But yeah, there's more than one flashback to the crime in this. There's one where they don't show who shot the family quite yet,
Mhm.
but they show the tying up and
Mhm.
how they separate. They pull everybody out of the bathroom. They move.
Oh,
them
yes,
different
that's right.
rooms.
At the end of when we had them in episode 1, they're all huddled together in that bathroom from overhead, just waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
And Herb Clutter constantly trying to reassure his family. They just want some money and they'll leave.
Well, they bring Herb and Kenyon down to the basement and they put Kenyon on the couch and they tie him up. And Perry knows these knots from when he was working on the horse farms and stuff. He knows.
Yes, I remember that in the book, they note that when they get the box of Perry's stuff, they're disappointed that the knot tying his box is not the same as the knot that was used to tie the
Nice.
pigeons.
And they tie Clutter to some kind of furnace vent of some kind. And in the flashback at the end here, for sure, Perry, he's tying up Mr. Clutter. I think they duct tape their mouths and his knee gives out again, or his leg gives out again.
And collapses.
And he
When he's
starts
supposed
to
to go,
whimper.
yeah, he's supposed to go slit his throat, and he whimpers because they think that the shooting will make too much noise.
And then he slits his throat, but it doesn't kill Clutter. It's
And so-
rough. And the kid's watching it, or the kid hears it at least on the couch. Man, it's so rough.
And the mom can hear it.
And Perry says something like, you can't go through with it, blah blah blah. So Perry takes the shotgun and he finishes off Herb Clutter. Then he finishes off Kenyon.
They tell Perry that Dick ratted him out, and so Perry starts ratting Dick out, and he tells them that
I couldn't kill the women.
Yeah, I wouldn't kill any women, so I had Dick do that. And Dick did.
Yeah. So they're driving them back to Kansas now.
So we have Dick said Perry killed everybody, and Perry's like, "Nah, I killed the dudes, but he killed the women.
Yeah, and it's here that we see. It's here that we really see what we talked about earlier. We see Roberts stopping Dick from finishing what he was trying to start with Nancy.
That's right. And we
And,
have
and he very politely is tying Nancy up. Very politely. I'm sorry. I need you to lay down.
And he's talking to her about her instrument playing. Like, you just keep practicing. Like with guitar, I just practice. And it's like, I kind of get.
You like horses? Oh yeah, I grew up around. I know horses.
I contribute my horse. It's my party.
Yeah, he's trying to be friendly and make her feel at ease. Yeah, it's horrible, man.
He puts the pillows under their heads and stuff. Makes it all nice for him. So tells them that he tells Herb Clutter that in the morning it'll all be like a bat. They'll come and they're gonna leave in a minute, and in the morning people come and find them. It'll all just been like a nightmare.
Oh, God. Dick and Perry are in prison in Kansas now. So do you remember the scene where Anthony Edwards hears Floyd?
Oh, no, I don't.
I swear he hears Floyd. What's the guy's name? Wells?
Floyd Wells.
And he's like, that you, Floyd? You ratted me out, you son of a bitch. I should have paid a little closer attention to this, but
there's one when they're both getting questioned in that interrogation scene. I wanted to bring up a line where they said,
there's a very brief court scene with Dick's mother where we learn that they are going to be given the death penalty. I'm kind of very grateful that it was brief. It's a little bit longer in the 67 movie, and the court thing is just always sort of tedious.
At any rate, there's a wonderful moment where they ask Eric Roberts if people don't trust him, like why they don't take why he doesn't try to run the hot checks if people look. He's like why they ask him why Dick does the hot check scam and Roberts has to be silent. And they're like, what, folks don't trust you, Perry? And Roberts looks at him, no. Roberts' line delivery was awesome. It just started making me laugh really hard. That was the same with Dick and the people are dumb. They each had a just awesome line reading in there. So the way Roberts says no, I was like, man, we make fun of some Roberts line readings in other movies we watch. There are two in this that are awesome, and that was the first one.
He was kind of born to play Perry.
Yes, I mean, it's the ultimate of all of his characters he's played.
Yeah. Even Roberts was in that really horrific car accident, and so he's got that to draw on.
Was it a car accident or a motorcycle accident?
He was in a Jeep.
Oh,
yeah, and he messed up his hand and a bunch of stuff, and in maybe his nose or his face. But he's doing some physical acting here with he's kind of Perry's knock-kneed in a lot of scenes, and he's just ripping it up, man. He's good, and in these last scenes, you're right. The no thing is very sad.
When they're in the car and Perry's telling him his version, and he talks about slitting his throat, and they cut back to Perry. He says it was something between him and me.
Yes.
The way Roberts reads that line was the other time where I was just like, that is a line you could read a trillion different ways, and he nailed it for what this movie's trying to say. Because a big theme, I think, is that you just can't know a person that well, and you can't know who would be the killer, and people. It's scary. The world is scary, and there are monsters out there. But Perry gives you here the movie gives you their reason for why he did it was because he didn't want to be the weak one. In the moment of truth, he wanted to show Dick that he had value. And they say
two guys goading each other on.
Yeah, and they said a lot of personal courage comes from the fear of looking stupid or being the weak one. And that was what Bat Masterson said, that no one he ever met possessed more personal courage in the face of danger than Wyatt Earp, but that he always felt it came from an insecurity inside, that Wyatt Earp didn't want to be the guy that wasn't found to have courage. And that's, I think, what they're saying motivates Perry here. He didn't want to be the weakling for once. He wanted to show that he had courage, but in reality, who knows? But that's this movie's theory, and I kind of liked it. I mean, I thought it was a good scene when he did it, and when he says that it was a thing between him and me. I really felt it.
I felt it, and this is where the twist comes, and it hit me because this is the last flashback when they're in prison. Perry confesses to Mr. Dewey that he pulled the trigger on the whole family. And he explains, I was mad at Dick for dropping his guts, but I respect his family, especially his mother.
His parents, yeah.
His mother was a really nice woman. Says something like that. And so I think it's here that we see exactly what happened. And it's Perry. He's the one.
Yeah, in this version. Yeah, this version says that's true. But we still see Dick goes to the gallows. And we don't see
Mr. Dewey is never shown, like you said,
shown telling anyone. But
in the book, Mr. Dewey's never convinced.
Yeah, in the book he did say on the stand though that Perry told him, at least it was entered into official record by Dewey, according to In Cold Blood, that Perry said that. But I guess it didn't convince anyone not to hang Dick. And I guess in In Cold Blood it says that when they were waiting for execution, like Dick got way into like legal shit and tried to like save them and stuff. I'm not sure if some of that is just stuff Capote really did, and because Capote shows him doing a lot of legal stuff. And also what Capote shows is in the book, Perry ends up having an army buddy that is like a normal guy that comes out of the woodwork somehow named Dan Cullivan or something, and talks to him a bunch in prison and knows all this stuff about him. And you kind of get the feeling like after seeing Capote, something like, well, Capote just basically has Perry tell Capote all the stuff that Dan Cullivan gets told in the book. So maybe there was no Dan Cullivan. I don't know. Yeah,
he was
just Truman Capote. Yeah, and then in the movie In Cold Blood, there's just like a guy that's an old writer, right? In the old movie that comes and talks to them that looks nothing like Truman Capote.
Well, I didn't really totally finish the old movie.
Oh yeah, in the old movie when they go to jail, there's like a Truman Capote character, but it's not meant to make you think of Truman Capote. But yeah, some writer starts showing up, but it's like an old, very square guy.
Where there's
old,
talk,
skinny, square guy.
Earlier in the movie, there's talk of taking a ride on the big swing,
and
that stuck with me. Well, and this is what happens. So Dick is hung first. I imagine they were executed separately, right? I mean,
I think
how
that
I remember it from
yeah, they
Capote.
were, and maybe Dick was executed first. Maybe it was the same day, but I'm not sure. I can't remember. It wasn't too far from each other. And this movie also, a big thing it excludes is who all they were on death row with. Like in the book, they're in death row for a while at the end, and they get into the other people on death row a little bit, and they're on death row with this guy who is like the nicest boy in Walcott, according to an article after he killed his family.
They're on death row with the Timothy McVeigh and Ted Bundy's there as well.
Well, that's another thing though. When they're on death row towards the end of their sentence, two kids come in that were like former soldiers that had just been killing people along the freeway, and kind of brings in that all kinds of crazy murders have been happening everywhere of people, innocents, like not just so the Holcomb murder had gone away from people's minds, and the execution of these guys wasn't the news it would have been.
So the 50s were not as innocent as we would be led to believe.
Yeah, or at least now we'd be in 1960 or 61 or 62 even. I don't know how many years after they committed the murder they end up dying.
Roy, it really is true. Entropy is the tendency.
Everything can go to hell.
Do you remember Dick's last words?
Well, I don't know his real last words, but I remember his last words in the movie. He
from the miniseries.
Yeah, he says that he knows that it's an apology to the family of the Holcombs would be inappropriate, but he wants to apologize anyway.
Yeah, and Mr. Dewey's there. He shakes Sam Neal's hand, and he shakes a couple guys' hands.
But Roberts, what he does not say though about the big line he doesn't say is he never says that I always thought he was a nice man, quiet man, soft spoken right up until the moment I slit his throat, which is like the big
You're
famous
talking about Perry's last words.
Well, that's Perry's big line in the book In Cold Blood and in the movie, the old movie, and in Capote. That's his big line. And infamous, it shows Truman Capote going to parties and talking to his friends and telling different versions of the story, and then he ends up using the version of the line that gets the best response from his friends. And I wanted to bring that up because here, this thing where Perry says that he wants to apologize in the movie Capote, Clifton Collins as Perry does not say that. He says, I want to say, is the family here? And they're like, no. He's like, I can't remember for the life of me what I was going to say. And in real life, Capote invented the apology.
Oh,
the real Perry never apologized on it. Those were not Perry's last words.
Well, I was thinking about Dick. Dick apologizes too, right?
I don't remember. He says that they're sending him to a much better place than he's in. He says he doesn't hold any hard feelings.
Yeah.
Yes. It's less.
I don't hold any hard feelings.
Yeah. At some point, he says he's pro death penalty. He's like, yeah, revenge is good. People need revenge. Hell, if I was them, I'd want it. I guess I'm pro death penalty as long as I ain't the one hanging.
The thing that did get me. So we have
the old movie was a big anti-death penalty movie, and the book is kind of anti-death penalty a lot too.
Well, Perry, because Perry has this little thing about it.
When they talk about
the way they do this to a man.
Yeah, and they have in the old in the book, there's a thing about how like the governor right before the governor that they voted out the governor in Kansas, and a new governor took over that ends up executing them. But the governor that got voted out, there was never an execution execution during his entire time, and he commuted some dude's sentences and from execution to life because he just didn't like killing people. And so maybe you're led to believe that would be sweeter.
Well,
of humans.
Perry is kind and sensitive up until the very end, and then he has that last trip that he does too, where he falls one last time on the way up the stairs.
And another thing we find out about Perry, and it's in the old film, and this is one thing I wanted to say
Hated black people,
is that no, the story about his dad and building the thing. The big thing about Perry is that even his dad told him he was worthless in the end when they went and built that lodge. And nobody came. They built a lodge and a hunting lodge together, and they danced on the roof when they built it. And then nobody came, and it was a big failure in Alaska. And he and his dad just had to live there in that big failure, getting poorer and poorer. Finally, one night he was eating a biscuit, and his dad called him a lazy, greedy shirker or something, and told him to get out. And it drove Flake nuts, or it drove Perry nuts, and he jumped on his dad and choked him. And his dad went and got a shotgun and held it on him and told him he was going to be the last thing he saw. And in the movie, both movie versions of In Cold Blood, Perry says, and he pulled the trigger, and then the thing wasn't loaded. So he has that moment in both of those where it says that his dad actually pulled a shotgun trigger to try to kill him. In the book, he doesn't say his dad pulled the trigger. He just says his dad realized it wasn't loaded. So that was another thing where I thought, oh, they took that from the old movie, not the book.
Yeah, and Perry tells Sam Neill, I'm not afraid. He's like, I've already died before. So I'm thinking, oh, he's going to tell the story of when he almost died on a fucking motorcycle. No, he's telling the story of how his father didn't have a loaded gun. But yeah, that's weird that they would copy a story from the movie and not the book. Weird choices here in this miniseries. And this is the end. Perry is the second, and he's hung, and then that's it.
And we
close
with
to the credits.
With some more Roberts singing in the credits of Perry music so that we can not feel so bad for Perry.
Yeah, and a little bit of footage of black and white footage of teenage Nancy on that horse to kind of end it out. And then that's it.
I'd say if you've read the book, seen Capote, and you're trying to choose between In Cold Blood with accused wife murderer Robert Blake and In Cold Blood with accused David Argusta murderer Eric Roberts, I'd say go with the Roberts. I liked this better than the 60s version. How did you feel?
Well, this is something you might not know much about, Roy, but Anthony Edwards was a known check bouncer. And it will color your opinion of his performance if you know that about him. I like the acting more in the 96 one. I like Edwards, and I like everyone. I really like Kevin Tighe as Clutter. And I think this is, of all the Roberts films that we've reviewed, I think this is my favorite performance of his.
It might be my favorite performance. It might be my favorite movie of his we've watched. I thought this was a good movie. It was the first part. It was cheesy. It wasn't better than Capote. It wasn't better than reading the book. But it's a good story, and I got engrossed. I liked this more than Runaway Train because this got better as it went along. It's really the first half of this movie that's more ponderous to me. Once they're busted, everything after that is like
the second half's much better.
I'm in that movie. I want to know what's going to happen, even though I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I liked it. To me, I was transported. I was into this movie.
Cool. The plot definitely transcends the touched by an angel quality of the production.
Yeah, and they probably, who knows what they're working with time, money.
Yes.
I mean, they probably, and stuff like that. I don't know their limitations, but
how would you rank this?
I liked it. And if we look at I was
going to ask you how you would rank this in the Ryan Reynolds filmography.
Best Ryan Reynolds movie I've ever seen, hands down. To me, this competes with Best of the Best, probably, for best Eric Roberts movie I've seen. But yeah, this is easily the best Ryan Reynolds movie I've seen.
Nice.
What do you think?
Deadpool?
I've seen Deadpool 1, not Deadpool 2. It was okay, but it wasn't as good as this.
Sure.
But did you see did you see anything about the guy that wrote this?
The adaptation?
Yeah.
No.
He was, I guess, he's a Fitzgerald. I don't know if he's related to F. Scott Fitzgerald, but he's related to some other Fitzgerald. He was, I guess, babysat or something by Flannery O'Connor when he was a kid, and he wrote the screenplay for the John Huston Wise Blood, and then he wrote the screenplay for the TV movie of Heart of Darkness, directed by Nick Rogue, with Tim Roth as Marlowe and John Malkovich as Kurtz. That's really good.
Have you've seen that?
Yeah, it's good. I think you might be able to find it on YouTube now. I used to have a file of it I found online that would eventually get slightly off with the audio track.
Is it
and
Nick
was annoying.
Roge?
It's not that Nick Roge. It's pretty straightforward, but it's good.
Well,
But
okay,
maybe
let's
once
see
he
here.
also wrote
Directed,
Passion of the Christ and then sued Mel Gibson for not paying him enough and settled for an undisclosed fee.
Well, let's go down the rabbit hole.
But he
Wrote a film
about F. Scott Fitzgerald and Zelda Fitzgerald. That's what made me think they might be related.
That's what I was going to say. Wrote a movie called Zelda.
Yeah, with Timothy Hutton as Zelda Fitzgerald. No, I don't know.
Maybe
as F. Scott.
Maybe there's a connection. Yeah, Timothy Hutton as Zelda.
Natasha Richardson, the late Natasha Richardson. That might be good. I tried to find that on YouTube and I couldn't find that or the TV Moby Dick with Patrick Stewart, which I imagine is probably easily findable on torrent or somewhere. I bet somewhere has that pretty easy to find. Maybe in one of those free streamings that's not YouTube.
Passion of the Christ. He was one of the writers.
Yeah,
along with the Apostle John and all those
Luke,
guys.
Truman Capote.
The Apostle of Capote.
Joseph Conrad,
The
Herman
Gospel of Capote. Well, this was
so I guess he also translated the introductory excerpt of the Odyssey for "O Brother, Where Art Thou?"
Really? Just seemed like it was just translated from the book.
I don't know. Apparently he has additional crew, 1 credit. "O Brother, Where Art Thou?" Translator the Odyssey introductory excerpt. I don't know what that means.
I can't believe Kevin.
Oh, maybe he wrote a translation of the Odyssey that came out in 1980 that they used.
Has Kevin Ty ever been in a
Cohen's?
Well, he looks like a Cohen's guy, but
Sure
he
does.
Also looks to me like an Oliver Stone guy.
Oh yes, yeah, he looks like he could definitely be an Oliver Stone movie. I bet he has, but man, now that you say that, it makes so much sense. I can just picture him in U-Turn or Nixon or just one of the
that
many
might be the
trillion
J.T.
people in
Walsh
Nixon.
quality that he has.
He was in The Graduate.
Kevin Ty
as as one of the fraternity brothers, I guess. With
Richard
Dreyfuss. He was
Dreyfuss
in K9.
Is one of the guys, right?
Yeah, Dreyfuss is kind of the main one of those frat boys, I think.
Yeah,
he's in Another 48 Hour. Lots of John Sayles movies so far. Oh, he's in Geronimo, an American Legend, Walter Hill film. The movie Men of War, which I think is a Dolph Lundgren. Maybe.
Roy, do you
Race
think
the Sun with Jim Belushi? Looks like he did a couple with Jim Belushi because K9, that's a Jim Belushi movie. Mumford, sorry.
Yeah, I saw he was in Mumford.
No, I don't see any Oliver Stones, unfortunately for him.
Yeah,
and Oliver Stone, they belong together.
He just looks too much like one of those. We
had every one of those guys in Nixon.
He looks like a guy that would be at NASA.
And Fibish Finkel.
Yeah, he looks like a guy from Apollo 13 or something who would be in the NASA room.
A nice cup of coffee.
Yeah, with those glasses and the white short sleeve button up t-shirt or shirt.
He was a paramedic for 7 years on the show Emergency. In 72 to 79, paramedic Roy DeSoto.
Well, if you guys are looking for a movie to watch and you're looking for a nice 2-hour and 50-minute long ride on the big swing, I would recommend In Cold Blood from 1996.
Free on YouTube, not in great resolution, unfortunately. But.
Yeah, it's available to rent from various streaming platforms, and you'll learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about America, and you're going to learn about entropy. You're going to learn about Kansas. What else, Roy, are you going to learn about? There's some procedural stuff here that's interesting.
You're going to learn about spilling your guts all over the floor and bubbles in your blood.
I think you'll learn about trauma. I maintain that's part of what this is about, how it colors.
You'll learn about Stella Stevens's old jugs.
Oh, man. Yeah, I would recommend people.
A couple saggy bags of milk for you.
Everyone should look up the filmography of Stella Stevens. Everyone should try and find this movie Road Racers, directed by Robert Rodriguez, also starring a nice pair of actors. David Arquette, the genius of our time, and Salma Hayek. I would like to clear up, Anthony Edwards never bounced a check. Come on. All right, folks. We'll catch you on the next installment.
You don't know Cherry Road? Every cop in Kansas knows Cherry Road. It's a stretch of park where you pick up, mostly hustlers, but that's not all. There's plenty of amateurs, nurses, secretaries. We ended up with a pair of rollers. They were sisters, I think. Remember their names by any chance?
Thank you. I never asked.
Well, that was 2 girls. You never asked their names?
They're just whores.